We are live. We are here, and I am excited because I get to share some things I've been working with you guys on the back end, and it's just been a good day. There are some good developments out there with the whole Minnesota thing. Well, good for drivers, hopefully good for drivers. I think that there is an avenue in which drivers will be okay. Hopefully, they'll make as much money or more as they were before. But we have some good news finally to talk about. I'm kind of getting tired of sounding like the bad guy and always harping on people and different things that are happening. But I'm always going to speak what I believe to be truth through my opinion, right? I'm not saying my opinion is the truth, but if I believe something and I know that it's something a lot of people will disagree with me on, I'm still going to speak on it. If it's not going to get me views, I'm still going to speak on it because that's just who I am as a person. But I am rebranding. It is no longer the Money Talk with Tristan podcast. It is now the Future Rideshare Millionaire. And I want to talk a little bit about why I'm rebranding. So let me pull up the YouTube channel. Here we go. So this is what it's going to look like now. We're doing away with the colors over time. These old thumbnails will stay. I like looking back and seeing where I came from. I do miss the old branding from a color perspective already, but the Money Talk branding isn't going away. It's just going to be shelved for a different product, a different channel. When I first started YouTube, I started it because I discovered how money works and I wanted to teach everyone that it could work for them too. What happened was I started to show off how I was making my income, and the rideshare videos started taking off. Originally, I wanted to make broader economic videos, like how to budget, what's going on in the economy. And someday I will do that, which is what I'm saving the Money Talk branding for. So we'll return in the future on a different channel. This current channel, there is just focused on rideshare, right? And I wanted to come up with a branding that was clear. So if someone new comes here, they see one of my videos and it says future rideshare millionaire. There's some ambiguity in there, which I'm going to clarify. I'm not saying that you can become a millionaire through rideshare. It is possible, and I'll show you the math today in this video. I am saying that for me, rideshare has been a fantastic tool that's going to help me bridge the gap from what I used to do to what I want to do. And that's what I want for you guys. Now, if what you want to do is to be a long-term rideshare driver, there are things that I'm going to teach you that you can still benefit from. I have nothing against drivers who want to be long-term rideshare drivers. Personally, I think Uber and Lyft are not great companies. They take advantage of drivers, and if you have a 10-year plan, it should include Uber and Lyft. And in that cases, you should find a legal way to become an independent driver and build your own business. That's if you want to be a long-term rideshare driver. If you don't want to be a long-term rideshare driver, I'm currently creating a system that will have step by step what I did to put myself in a position to never need Uber or Lyft again and focus on becoming other things. Like, I want to be a full-time YouTuber. I want to get my pilot's license. I want to go back and finish computer science so I can make games. But the thing that's always in the way for me is money. These things require money. It's about $10,000 just to get your private pilot license. So what can I do to create a life where I can afford that, both the money and the time to invest in it? And rideshare has been a huge help for me. So whether you want to be a rideshare driver, whether you want to do something else, I'm going to show you the principles, like the hard math that says that it is possible. Because I don't want to. I understand that the new name can make me seem kind of like a grifter. I considered using just Rideshare Millionaire, but that felt too much in the wrong direction because I'm not a millionaire yet. This is my journey to that process, and I'm doing my best to live it in public view, not to show off, but to encourage other people that you can do it too. It's hard work, right? I'm going to say things that sound easy, but just remember, doing something will always be harder than words, right? Well, not always, but majority of the time, I'll say things online and people are like, yeah, that's easier said than done. And in my head, yeah, no shit. It is easier said than done. Don't expect the things I say to be taken lightly because every day I fail. Every day in my journey to become more financial independent, I still fail. However, The goal is to succeed more than you fail, right? But I guess we will yeah, I guess I'll just show proof. That's so what we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out how much the average car payment is in America. And let's assume we were able to pay off that car. I know we have a bunch of other debts usually, but let's just assume we have the average car payment, we pay off the car, and then we invest that into the stock market for a period of time. Let's see how much that works out to be. So we'll go to what is the average car payment in America in 2024. So it says for a new car, you can expect to pay over $700, and for a used car, around $550. But this is based on factors like your credit score, the state of where you live, in terms of your purchase. So let's just use $700. Over here, we have the Ramsey retirement calculator. We're going to start with my age, which is 31. 31. And let's do, I would like to be considered retired no later than 50. And for me, retirement means that instead of doing things just to make money, I can do whatever I want and make money. So it's not me sitting at home watching TV all day. I hope that by the time I am 50, the income sources I make will be through things I want to do, right? Instead of things that I have to do. So we'll put 50. It says about how much money do you currently have? We're going to assume that we're starting with $0. How much money would you contribute monthly? We're going to do the $700 car payment. And what do you think the annual return will be? So this says that this is the return your investment will generate over time. Historically, the 30-year return for the S&P 500 has roughly been 10 to 12%. I'm going to explain what the S&P 500 is in a second. Let's just finish up these calculations. So we're going to let's use the lower of the two numbers, the 10%. We're going to hit calculate. So 31, by the time I'm 50, if I were to only invest $700 a month, I would end up with $473,210. That's not a million, but we can get there over time. I just wanted to illustrate this example for you guys. Okay, so here's, I did it again. Here's a quick synopsis of what's actually happening. We had an initial balance of 0%, $0, and we contributed $159,600 over the course of those 19 years. But the growth was actually $313. The growth was $313,610. But what would happen if, we continue doing that into our 60s? So this is what is the let's just do the retirement age of 67. That's kind of late. So at 67, if you were to do this for 30 years and invest the average car payment into an investment account getting 10%, which is what the S&P average is, you'd have $2.9 million. $3 million if you're going to just round up. Your contributions would be $300 to $1,000. Your growth, right? Growth. This isn't like if you put $300,000 into this thing, it'll grow 2.6 million. It sounds fake, right? There are several problems with this. The first problem is nobody can afford to invest $700 into retirement. That's not where we are, right? That's not where a lot of us are. But I want to push back on that and say that I tried doing this before I was financially ready, and it hurt more than it helped. There was a time period when I first started learning about retirement, about how stocks work, and I started investing. This was during the pandemic. The problem was I wasn't doing well financially. I was making a good amount of money, but I wasn't doing a great accounting of my money. I wasn't like being a great steward of my money. And what happened is while I was investing, my car got repoed. I could afford to pay the bill, but because of how much I was spending, I didn't. And then my car got repoed. And in order to get it out of repo, I had to take money out of my stocks. And because stocks are a long-term thing, I lost money, right? I learned a very powerful lesson. I hope you guys never have to learn that lesson. And so the moral of this story is there's some financial work that we have to do as individuals so that we can someday be able to invest enough into the market so that we can retire with dignity, right? You can do this as a solo entrepreneur. You can get a 401k. It's possible. You can match yourself in that 401k. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do. And once I get to that level, I'm going to make more videos about that. But I'm very wary about making videos about things that I haven't actually started doing. But as rideshare drivers, we have the ability to work as much as we want up until what, 12 hours, take a 6 hour break. That's the limit. Most jobs don't allow you to even get overtime. There's some that are out there. But what I really love about rideshare, even though it doesn't pay an overtime rate, how much money I need to make per week even in a slow market, can be achieved if you're willing to hustle. And it might suck. Your market might suck. Hustling sucks. Putting long hours out there, it all sucks. But there is a straightforward path in order to figure out what you need to have some semblance of financial freedom, right? We know that there's a lot of things going on, especially in Minnesota. There are tables that are turning where it can have a real impact on drivers. So even before we're able to get to this level of investing, there are certain defenses, financial defenses that we need to build in order to protect ourselves from whenever Uber or Lyft have a mood change. Let's get rid of Lyft comfort. I think extra comfort is going away as well. They make these changes so often that I just want to be in a position where I can say, oh man, that sucks, but I'm glad I'm financially put together. So I want to walk you guys through my budget, my own budget, in hopes that it encourages you to make your own. I'm currently trying to build a budget tool. You won't see it today, but I want to get you guys in the habit of starting a budget. It is the beginning of the month. If you do not have a budget that is written down, you do not have a budget. I don't want to hear anything about a mental budget. I want you and your partner, if you have one, to sit down. I want you to write out all of your fixed expenses, all of your recurring expenses, and then I want you to have a conversation with your partner or with yourself about what it is you plan on spending this month. A budget is not a restriction on what you can buy. A budget is a plan for your money, right? A lot of people think that, oh, only poor people should be using budgets. I think everyone, poor or rich, needs to use a budget. And it's especially important for rideshare drivers because if you make your budget, you can see down to the penny how much money you would need to make at minimum in order to live. And from there, if you know your market well enough, you can calculate how many hours you need to work per month or per week, or how much money you need to make per week. It's super important when the goal is to have a level of financial independence. All right, so let me go and pull up my budget. Me and my wife, we just made it. It's nice and fresh. We used an app that is not free. It's through Dave Ramsey, but that's okay. I'm gonna end up making a spreadsheet that I think I'm gonna make it free that you guys can use. All right, so this is called the Every Dollar app by Dave Ramsey. The only reason I have it is because I got it for free through their course, and I probably won't renew it. I'll probably end up making the own spreadsheet, but I'll kind of walk you through what I have here. So you can see my mortgage. That is $962.52. I live in a 1,100 square foot house, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. We got a really good interest rate before the pandemic even started. It was like 2 point something. So we are blessed in that sense that, that bill is really, really low. We have the water trash. That's for $100.93. We have lawn care for $60. Electric bill for $110. The HOAs due. We pay our HOA in sets of 3. So $115 for 3 months. And then we have to get air filters because that is something you do when you own your home. We scroll down. For gas, we have $80. That's for my wife. That's not for me. My rideshare business isn't budgeted through this. And when I make the spreadsheet for you guys, it will have rideshare things incorporated in it. But this is just my household budget. So I'm able to see how much money I need to make at minimum for my household. And I'll show you what that number is specifically once we're done here. So for food, we do $350 for the month, and that's just groceries. My wife has a personal allowance of $75. I have a personal allowance of $75. I usually end up spending it eating out I'm trying to decrease how often I eat out, especially when I'm driving to save money, right? I'm trying to bring food with me more often. I spent some of my personal allowance last month on snacks that I can carry with me, like nuts, cheese sticks. What else was it? I bought like tuna packages so I can carry it with me. The reason I'm doing this is because as a rideshare driver, it's very easy to eat unhealthily and to spend money doing so. So I'm trying to find more snacks that is compatible with the fact that I have diabetes. And I'm also trying to save more money in the long term because it doesn't matter how much money you have if your health is poor, you know. So that's a focus for me. Um, we have $11 for Apple Music. Trying to talk my wife into canceling it, but we'll get there. iCloud 99 cents, Amazon Prime $16, Crunchyroll. That's probably my only entertainment budget item. I like to watch anime. Big anime fan here. My wife's Mint Mobile. We pay for her Mint Mobile a year at a time, and it's $360 for the year. If you guys can get away with using Mint Mobile in your city, you should switch to Mint Mobile. It's very, very cheap. 12 divided by 360, what is that? $30 a month. That can have a big difference on your rideshare business. Going from $30 a month down from what the average cell phone bill is like $100, $80 to $100. That's pretty bad. I don't, but just make sure it works in your city. For me, Mint Mobile doesn't work very well in the busiest part of downtown, and so I had to get a different carrier. It's unfortunate, but I was losing money because I didn't have good service. So just make sure Mint works very well where you live. We have miscellaneous for $100. This is just for anything that pops up. We have a budget item for it, just so that we don't have to pull money from somewhere else. So having a little buffer is pretty strong, pretty good idea. Passports, I need to renew my passport, $130. We have a family trip. The budget for that is $268, and that's just for someone who's planning it. We'll give them the money, they take care of everything. My wife's allergy shots, $40 a month. I'm getting an exercise bike because being healthy is important. So hopefully I can get the bike. Between rideshare and making YouTube videos, it does take up a lot of my time, and I want to get into habits of being more healthy. So this is an attempt at that. We'll see how well that goes, but I already ordered it. The money's already spent. So for auto insurance, that's $232.29. That's personal auto insurance. It also includes I need to separate it. I need to put the business portion out of this and pay that from my business account. So that's probably something I'll do for next month. And then these are just our debts, the student loan debts. But when you add up all of our bills, not including the debts, the total is $3,329 a month. That's all we need for our budget. We could cut that more if we wanted to. If you wanted to live at a lower level, we could do that. But I'm okay with this. So that means whatever extra I make past that $3,329, that's going to debt. I'm gonna use that to pay off debt. We started with maybe, let me see if I can show you. Hold on. Okay, let's hold on. Yeah, I got some good graphs I can show you guys. We're gonna take a look at what I've spent so far this year. So far this year, between my wife and I, we've spent, this isn't including rideshare related things, we spent $16,000 over the course of 3 months. So this is year to date. Out of that $16,000, $4,000 have been for housing, but the biggest chunk has been $6,450 have gone towards debt. We Both of our cars are paid off, so whatever car payments that we had is now being funneled into paying off debt. The credit card payments that we had now being funneled into paying off debt. And we use the snowball method where you start with the lowest debt, you pay that off, you take that money that you're now saving by not having that debt, and you roll it into the next one, and you keep doing that. And what my wife and I are finding is that we're starting to have a lot of money left over at the end of the month, to where once we're debt free, we're no longer paying off our student loans. We have about 90 grand of student loans left. We're going to be saving a lot of money, like a lot of money. If we're making 10 grand a month, right? Because I'm out there hustling, I'm driving a lot. We're making 10 grand a month. and our bills are about 3 grand a month, we're going to have like a net of 7 grand per month, especially once we're debt free. So we're going to be able to stack money very, very quickly. And we're starting to see that. And it's very motivating to see how much money we're going to start having because we've made the effort to decrease our bills, decrease our spending, and increase our income. So very motivating to see that. Here is a spending breakdown by category. So you can see we paid off majority of the debt in January. We did pay some off last year as well after we got married, but you notice that there's no debt payment for February, no debt payment for March. That's because we have decided to hold off on paying off debt until we're done with our taxes, which I'm gonna get done with my taxes this week, and I'll make a video showing you guys that entire process. But we want to make sure that we don't owe anything, so we've kind of just been hoarding our money for 2 months. And the amount of money we've stacked up in such a short period of time, it's cool to see. And I've never been at this stage of life. Like right now, I'm doing the best financially that I've ever done, despite the fact that it's becoming harder to make money. While my income has increased, my earnings per hour has increased from last year. It's because I'm implementing new tricks and finding new strategies that's keeping my income up, even though Uber and Lyft are doing their best to change how the system works. And I'm going to put out a video, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, that details my specific strategy that I've been using that's been making me earn over $40 per hour. I'm going to show you guys my income once we're done with this whole budget thing. I just want to encourage you guys to start thinking about your budget, start trying to plan, you know? So this is a cool graph. It shows you your income versus what's spent. So you can see that this green line is my income right here. And then what's spent is that blue line. So it's nice to see that there's a difference. You know, there should be a difference. But let's go and check out how much money I made in March, right? We're going to look at how much money I made in March, and then we're also going to look at how much money I've made so far in 2023. This is your quarterly update. So first, we're going to go to Lyft to show proof because, you know, people don't always believe me. And that's fine. When we're talking about money, it's important to show proof and, you know, what's going on. So you can see some of this is in February, some of it's in March. Majority of it is in March. It's $1,689.55. We're just going to do the weekly breakdowns. We're not going to go day by day. That would take too much time. The next week, this is for load quicker. So from March 4th to March 10th, I made $2,398.13 on 800 booked miles, but I don't trust this. I don't trust anything Lyft puts in here. It's a distortion of information. When we get to the spreadsheet, you'll see what the more accurate numbers look like. And there's still a gap in accuracy there that I'll explain. From March 11th to March 17th, I made $2,584.11. Had a very, very strong start to March. And then I kind of got lazy. And there you see it. So March 18th to March 24th, only $892. I should have driven more. I didn't. I slacked off. This is on me. These are the things that I need to solve in my life in order to hit the goals that I've set. March 25th to March 31st, just $1,638.21. Now, I have made money with Uber. It's not a bunch, so I'm not even going to really go through it on the app, but we can jump over to the spreadsheet and we can start kind of digging through my totals, right? So for the month of March, I have driven 4,597 business miles. That's about 5,000 miles. Pretty good. I've been doing a great job of not using my car for personal things. I try to use my wife's car. So, but there are still some, you know, personal stuff that happens that I have to use my car for. So the total for March from an income perspective, $8,476.31 over the course of 156 hours and 59 minutes, which works out to a per hour amount of $53.99. I had to come clean about this number. This is just using my online time, and just using online time isn't enough. When I constructed this spreadsheet, I was only using Lyft, and at the time, my strategy was pretty much stay online. There's very few times I would go offline to deadhead or do this or to do that. It was stay online, make as much money as possible. But my strategy has shifted to where, depending on the night, I'll have to pick someone up, drop them off, go offline, and drive back to where it's busy. And that's helped me with certain strategies. So this isn't the full story, but it's still, if I had to estimate, it'd probably end up being around maybe $45 an hour. At some point, I'm going to update my spreadsheet to be able to track what we call door to door time, which is the time you spend outside of your house doing Uber and Lyft stuff. I probably won't include lunch and things like that. Some people don't care about door to door time. I do. I want to have an accurate measure of how I'm using my time so that I can say I'm using this time for Uber and Lyft. I can calculate my earnings more accurately and compare it to whatever else I want to do in life, whether it's becoming a YouTuber, pilot, or whatever. I just feel like having access to accurate numbers is great. I probably will calculate both online and door to door time. I'll make that a feature and people can choose which one they want to do. But for me, I need a better way of tracking my online time. I used to uh, track my offline time. Like in February, you can see I had 13 hours of offline time, but that's becoming too much to do while driving. It's too much. I need to just find an easier way to do that. But you can see my income sources down here. Majority of it is Lyft. Out of that $8,331 that you see, only $500 came from a referral. So it's a very small chunk of it, but it's in there. And I'm not gonna mislead you guys. So I've driven for 155 hours with Lyft. It's coming out to $53.63 per hour. With Uber, I didn't do a lot of Uber. They're just not giving me the challenges or the tools to make money in my city. So $45 with Uber. I have $50 with the Play Octopus tablet. I'll show you guys that in a second. And then $50 with Lyft's cash back, because I am a, what is it called? An elite driver, which is the status is called elite. They give me 10% cash back on gas, and gas is our biggest expense, right? We can look at the expenses real quick. So you can see for gas, I spent $460 and I made over $8,000 by spending $460 on gas. I got about 10% of that back. For tires, it was a bad month for tires. It really, really was. I bought 6 tires within the last 2 months, and I bit the bullet and I just said, okay, let's just replace all the tires. Hopefully these tires last me to the rest of the year. Usually they do, unless like they pop or nails getting them. But outside of that, I've actually never had tires wear out. So hopefully no more nails, no more popping. Hopefully we can carry these tires to the end of the year. Car wash, $19.99. I just pay that every month. I need to go more often, but I try to go at least once a week. Insurance, half of the insurance that me and my wife pays is $112.75. So the total on expenses is over here, $980. So I grossed $8,476 in 1 month on $980 worth of expenses. It's pretty good summary. You can kind of see more of my breakdowns day to day, but we're not going to jump into the day to day. Over here, this kind of calculates what my real money is. Like, what am I taking home after estimated taxes, which even that number is still not accurate, plus the mileage write-off and expenses and things like that. So the mileage write-off for driving this amount of miles, 4,597, is $3,079.99. When you subtract your mileage write-off from your income of $8,500, this is the number you get. So this is the number the government thinks you made, and that's the number that the government is going to tax you for. There are other tax write-offs that could be applied to this, but this is an underestimation of that number because I haven't created the feature where you can select which expenses count towards write-offs or not. For example, gas does not count towards write-offs if you're using the standard mileage deduction, but your cell phone plan, it can, depending on how you have it structured. I assume a 15% tax rate, which is high. Rideshare drivers usually aren't taxed much because their taxable income is seen as being low. But we're just going to use 15% because why not? So estimated taxes for March for making $8,500 would be $809.45. And when the true net, so I have this calculating the true net. The true net is the estimated taxes plus my expenses minus what I made. So 8,500 minus estimated taxes of $800 minus my expenses of $980. And that gives us a true net of $6,686.86, which works out to a true hourly rate of $42.60. So that means after all my rideshare bills are paid, I can throw $6,686 into my personal account, which will go towards debt. That's I think that's pretty good. It's pretty solid. I did not work like usually I'd have to work a lot more days and hours to get to this, but let's see. I want to see what is this in days? Let's use AI because convert this to days. I just want the answer. I don't want to be taught how to do it. So I don't think what's a great way to figure let's assume all right, let's assume we broke this down into 8-hour shifts. How many days of working would that be? I think that's a better way to do it. Divide this by 8 hours. It's not I don't know what a great way to do this is. 156 hours. That's just so hard to relate to. Okay, I know what to do. How many? I guess let's just assume what 40 hours for a work week. Multiply it by 4, so is that 120? Or is that 3? 116. So this would be more than the average work day. I don't know. I don't feel like I don't feel like doing the mental gymnastics for this. But as you guys saw, I didn't work as often as I could have. I didn't work every day, and I was still able to make some pretty good money. And sure, yeah, I did hustle on the busy days and make great money on those days. But if I could establish more of a routine that has me working maybe every day, take one day off, I think that I would do very well this year. But it's been kind of difficult to build up to that. As you can see in January, I made just $5,000. In February, I made even less. I slacked off completely. But I think that I'm finding my groove and I'm trying to be a little more consistent. So I'm proud of myself. My goal was $10,000. I didn't hit it. That was my goal. Maybe I'll hit it this month. I'm trying to use these busy months to make as much money as possible because we don't know what's going to happen in the winter. We don't know how bad it's going to be. Last winter was real bad. My market falls off completely after summer. So I'm trying to make majority of my income during the summer. You guys should be doing it too, especially if you're a new rideshare driver and you just started like a month or two ago. Make sure you are making as much money as possible because the money that you're making during the summer, depending on your market, might not be there in the winter. And so it's very important. Either have a job, a backup job for the winter, or you need to be doing whatever you can to stack your money. I know sometimes I get comments from people saying, oh, you're working too much or you're doing this, your body, this, that, and the third. We are sprinting to a goal. And once we are at that goal, we go from intensity to intentionality. So it's don't think that you have to hustle for the rest of your life to have financial independence. But the faster you do hustle, like money is exponential. When you're able to that works in both directions, right? When you have debt, it's an exponential weight that can crush you. But when you use interest rates in your favor, it's an exponential thing that you can benefit from. So the faster that we go and get the negative interest out of our life because of how exponential it is the faster we can start putting our money and our time towards positive interests that's exponential. Not just in terms of finances, in terms of starting that business you always wanted to start, in terms of going back to school if that's what you really want to do. So it's important to rush to neutrality, right? I'm in the negatives right now. I have a negative net worth. I have debt. It's important to get that out of your life as soon as possible. And then once you do that, you can set yourself up to take your time and be more intentional with your money to build it for the future. You're not, I'm not expecting myself to work, 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days for the rest of my life. The goal is to get to the point where I can focus on being a YouTuber, getting my pilot license, whatever it is. And even if you want to be a long-term rideshare driver, you will survive rideshare longer the less debt you have, the more of a security blanket you have, the bigger your emergency fund is compared to imagine someone just all right, let's imagine that we all live in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and we're seeing what's happening, and we're not sure what will happen on May 1st. Someone who doesn't have debt, someone who has their emergency fund built up, they will still have concerns about the future for rideshare, but their concerns will stress them out way differently than someone who's living check to check with rideshare. And so I want to make sure that the people who are consuming my content that want to be long-term rideshare drivers are in a place to where if Uber and Lyft just disappear and there's no alternatives, you'll be okay for a period of time. It'll suck, but it'll be less of an emergency and more of an inconvenience. People who have debt, people who don't have savings built up, people who have high car payments, they're stressing differently than I'm stressing about various things. And I think it has a major, I think that's why I take certain stances that I do. And it could be because of the security that I built, to where some of these changes that happen, they don't feel big to me. And I want that for you guys as well. People who have high car payments, they're worried, right? When even beyond Uber and Lyft, if you have a medical issue and you have debt, it's gonna suck. If your car has issues, mechanical issues, and it needs to be in the shop for a week while they order some part from China, it's gonna suck. We need to do a better job of turning emergencies into inconveniences, and you do that by just having better financials. It sounds easy. It's easy for me to get here and say that, but it'll probably honestly take a year or two, depending on how hard you want to go. But it's important. Beyond rideshare, even if you were in a different field, this stuff is important. You should not have to work after 60. That's where I'm at. And if you do work after 60, it's because you want to and not because you have to. I hate, man, I don't want to get too deep into it. I don't want to get too sidetracked. I am going to take a look at how much other drivers made. Actually, no, let's look at how much I've made so far year to date. So my spreadsheet summarizes everything at the end. And this is the summary for 2024 so far. So I've driven 11,000 miles in 2024 between January and now, business miles, that is. I've made a total of $17,122.23. I was trying to get this number to 20,000, but I didn't get it there. I'm behind from where I would like to be. I want to make $100,000 this year with Uber and Lyft, just to say that I did, kind of YouTube clout, but I'm behind. Let's see where I should be. So $100,000, 1, 2, 3, divided by 12. You multiply that by 3 months. So I should be at $25,000. We'll just say I'm at 18. So I'm $7,000 behind, which is not very motivating. But I need to, if I can bridge that gap before summer ends, I might be able to hit it. But if I can't bridge that gap before summer ends, there's no way I do it over the course of fall and winter. There's just no way that happens. So that's over the course of 383 hours, 49 minutes. Works out to a per hour rate of $44.61, 61 cents. Per hour amount of $44.61. So the mileage. So my mileage, I'm making $1.49 per mile. I think that's excellent. Pretty good. Doing a good job there. My expenses so far this year is just at $2,681. The highest one being gas at $1,132. The second highest being, is that in short? Well, tires. I gotta fix that. But for tires, I spent $609.44 this year. Hopefully, I don't have to spend any more on tires. I'm hoping. I'm hoping for the best here. After that, we have oil change. That's gonna jump up too. But I started doing my own oil changes and I stopped paying $100 for Jiffy Lube to do it. And it's only costing me $40 to do it. So, as drivers, we need to be looking for ways to cut money whenever we can. So my true hourly, we'll just jump over here, would be $35.17. That's after expenses, after taxes. My true net would be $13,500 out of 17. So about $4,000 being knocked off. So not bad. I think this is pretty good. If you don't think it's good, you let me know why you don't think it's good. We're going to look at how much money other drivers made last week across America. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to check in on the comments. So leave some comments for me. Ask whatever questions you want to ask. Just be as specific as possible. So here is, I got to unlock my phone. Hold on. Actually, before we do that, we'll do this. We'll keep it moving. All right. So this is the top drivers in America that use the Solo app. There could be drivers who made more money than this, but they are not on the app. One of the negatives of this app is that we can't see how much people actually drove. So there's no way to calculate their hourly earnings. But this is a very great indicator of what the potential is for various markets around America. So number one is Denver, Uber Eats and Uber, $3,112. Number two is Riverside, $2,904. Number three is New York, $2,832. Number four is Pittsburgh, $2,779. Number five is Seattle with DoorDash and Amazon Flex. So despite the changes that have been made in Seattle, this guy is able to make $2,511. Shout out to him. Stockton, Modesto, $2,368. And he ranks number 6. We have Roanoke doing DoorDash and Spark, $2,359. We have New York with DoorDash and Grubhub, no Uber, no Lyft, $2,333, ranking at number 8. Number 9 is Maui for $2,218. And number 10 is Columbia, I assume South Carolina, with Uber for $2,214. Hey, honorable mention, Minneapolis, just using DoorDash, made $2,171. And we have LA coming in 14th, $2,121. So we have over 20 drivers that made over $2,000 this week. It's not bad. Boston's in there, Rochester's in there, Kalamazoo. That's a great name. I would love to tell people I'm from Kalamazoo. Hey, look, Charleston, my boy Nassef, 1,886. He was really bummed out he couldn't crack 2,000 this week. But so it goes, So it goes. All right, so I'm gonna check in with the comments, see what you guys are up to. Okay. Here we go. Can I turn the volume up? Okay, sure. I'll try. Okay, I've turned up the volume. Let me know if this is high enough or if it needs to go up some more. Desktop audio, mic audio. Yeah, see if is. Let me know if this is enough. All right. Francesco says hi. Hello. Mike B says hi. Hello. Queen Brown says hi. I'll be listening driving. I am rooting for you. Please don't crash. Nab says Tristan. Mike B says yeah, it's on. Teslathian, I think. I don't know how to pronounce that. Like the new name and rebrand. When is the next new rebrand and or name change? 100K subscribers. That's funny. But yeah, there will be another rebrand, and the next rebrand will be when I'm a millionaire. I'm gonna change it from future rideshare millionaire to rideshare millionaire. So I don't know when that will happen. Hopefully, I get 100K before that happens. But yeah, eventually I'm gonna rebrand, and it's gonna be to rideshare millionaire. Bobby says 90%, 99% of rideshare drivers I know are degenerate gamblers. That is so gambling is an epidemic that's sweeping our country that doesn't get talked about enough, and it can wipe you out, man. It's not. I someday I would like to get into gambling, but I will have a budget for it. I'm going to say, all right, this is the amount of money I'm going to gamble, and when it's gone, it's gone. If I make money on it, that's great. It's going to be a very small percent of my net worth, probably no more than 5% per year is what I would try to do. Um, but it has to be with money that I'm willing to lose, right? It's just fun. You can't try to fix your financial problems through gambling because it has the potential to make it exponentially worse. And man, one of a YouTuber that I really liked watching, he does gamble, but he goes in and out of it, and I hate it for him. I feel like in the we kind of both started making videos around the same time, and I feel like if he just was a little more consistent and stayed true to like his hustle mentality, I feel like he would have been so much further than where he is now. But whatever, let's move on. Nia says, you probably mentioned it before. Do you pay for solo? Where do you get the spreadsheet tracker? I do pay for solo. I pay for it just to get to show you guys the ranking. Um, yeah, that's why I use it. It does have other features, but haven't really looked too much into it. The spreadsheet tracker, that is from me. You can look in, it should be in the description. It's from Patreon. You can do it on Patreon. If you can wait a week or two, that'd be fine. I'm developing a website right now. I'm going to make it available through the website. But if you want to support me on Patreon, it's $5 a month. You can support me for a month, cancel it, and then if you ever want to get an update, because I will do updates periodically, you can just resubscribe for $5. It's, that's it. I put effort into making the spreadsheet. I had to learn a lot of new things that I didn't know before in order to do this, but that's going to be something that's offered. And with your subscription, you will still have access to whatever I make in the future. So don't think of it as you paying $5 for the spreadsheet. It's you supporting the channel. And as a thank you for supporting the channel, you're also going to get access to other tools that I'm making to help with rideshare. Like I'm making a rideshare planner. I'm making a bonus tracker so you can track bonuses a little better, which is something I've been using to like make the money that I'm making. So Sam says, I have a 260,000 mortgage debt. My mortgage is, we bought the house for 168. I don't know what it's at now. I do know the house is worth like 250. So it's going pretty well. So I won't, when I say debt free, I'm not talking about the house as well. I'm just focused on consumer debt. The plan to pay off the house is a different plan. But I'm probably just gonna end up selling it when I move to Vegas, hopefully. And I'll probably use 100% of the equity as a down payment for the next place. Hopefully, I can get maybe a 5 bedroom, somewhere I can have a bigger studio. This place is actually really small and it's actually pretty limiting, but that's the goal for that right now. Ron says, Tristan, don't go down the rabbit hole and work the bridge run this Saturday. I worked the bridge one last year. I worked it the night before into the morning before the run starts, and then I went home. Working while the run is happening, not a great idea unless you usually stay within an area filter and just stay North Charleston, Somerville, just stay up there, right? Maybe surges will pop up because drivers will get trapped downtown, but you can use the tools that allow you to avoid that mess. And yeah, I'll probably do it maybe just for a video, but normally I would just drive early into the morning and then bye, I'm going home, go to sleep. But we'll see. I like testing it out, new things. Mike B says, how do y'all get motivated to go out and drive? I work a full-time job and do Lyft at night, but some nights it's like I don't have the energy or motivation. That happens to me, and my income is mostly from Uber and Lyft. I find that if I can work myself up to just getting out the house, I can stay out there for a while. But it is hard. It's a daily fight, and sometimes I just want to stay in here and play games. I love playing games, love watching anime, hanging out with my wife, but it's just a constant fight. Not every day that I win. That's real, and I don't have an answer. So if you guys have answers, how do you guys motivate yourself to go out? Especially where I know that if I make $3,000 a month, boom, I'm good. My bills are good for the month. I can try again next month. But the amount of motivation I have to give myself once I'm at that 3,000 is so much harder. It's because I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just gonna keep reading. Signaling says, what factors do you use to decide whether or not you accept a ride? Total miles, total estimated time. I'm gonna give you an answer, but the first thing I'm gonna do is use the bathroom. Sorry. Okay, I have a lot to say about this. I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to rant. Glad you gave me the opportunity to rant. So, okay, so the question is, what factors do you use to decide whether or not you accept a ride? Total miles, total estimated time. The factors that I use to decide whether I should take a ride changes. It's based off of what is my goal. If I have a ride challenge that requires a large amount of rides, the strategy that I'm going to use to hit that ride challenge is different from the strategy I would use if I wasn't hitting a ride challenge. I will say this, and I think that a lot of YouTubers might disagree with me, a lot of drivers might disagree with me, but I think we need to stop setting minimums. I believe that there's a time and place for strategy that is different. There's a time and place to accept a $3 ride. There's a time and place where you don't accept a $3 ride. So saying across the board, I will never accept a $3 ride is not a good way to approach rideshare, right? Now, 90% of the time, not accepting a $3 ride might be beneficial, but we need to make sure that we're not hard setting in our ways with certain rides, right? If I see a ride that is here's a good example. Here's a really, really good example. Maybe last year, I made a ride showing it was about 15 minutes from where I was to the airport. And then from the airport to downtown, it was only paying like $13 for maybe a 40-minute trip, 30-minute trip. And on paper, it looks like a really bad ride. But I used the destination filter. I was leaving my house and I wanted to go downtown. So I used the destination filter to say, only give me rides that are going downtown. If I didn't use that destination filter, if I never had that ride, I would have driven downtown for free and I would have made no money. So on paper, it looks like a very, very bad ride, but a bad ride is a good ride if it's going the direction you would have gone without the ride, right? So if I had this stuck in my head that, oh, I'm only taking rides that look like $30 per hour on paper, then I'm going to miss out, right? And even with some of those $3 rides, I know that I'm going to get tipped. Even if it's a $2 tip, you're talking about almost a 50% tip. So a $3 ride that's only going 2 miles, and then you get $2 on top of it, becomes a $5 ride for 2 miles. And now you're making $2.50 per mile, you know? So I don't have a hard set rule on what I'm accepting, is the long and short of it. It's based off of what my goals are for that day. And more importantly, when it comes to the conversation of cherry picking, like how do you decide what's good, what's bad? First off, let me say upfront pay. If you're relatively new to rideshare, there was a time period where we didn't know how much we were making before something happened, and we had what we call rate cards. I'm gonna do my best to pull up a rate card. The rate card I show you will not be accurate to what today is, but it will show you an example of what we used to work with. Rate card. Let's do Charleston. Let's do Lyft. These aren't accurate anymore. So it says base, it just shows you everything up like what it was supposed to be. So it says base fare 48 cents. The cancel penalty was there. The cost per mile 98 cents. Never been that since I've been here, even before upfront pay came out. Cost per minute. So you get the gist, right? This is what we used to work with. They wouldn't show us how much we were making upfront. But once upfront pay came out, I believe it caused drivers to make less money for two reasons. The first reason is because Uber and Lyft disguised it as a pay cut. That's just what I believe. Um, they were able to set prices without giving real information on the prices. That's not something we can really control. The second reason is I think drivers don't really know what a good ride looks like or can look like, right? Everyone's gonna have a different opinion about what a good ride looks like. And some people, like, they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot. You know, you don't have a lot of time to make a decision on the ride that's being thrown in your face. So it has become harder to decide what is a good ride and what isn't a good ride. The solution to this is that instead of cherry picking rides, you should cherry pick when you drive, right? This is not a perfect science. It's not gonna be 100%. I try to drive when it is best to drive. I'm cherry picking the time of day and the days that I drive, right? So that when I'm out there driving, the rides are typically better than otherwise. As independent contractors, it is great to be able to work whenever you want. It is great to be able to set your own schedule. But the reality is, if you want to maximize your time, you're going to have to work when other drivers aren't working, and you're going to have to drive when demand is highest. Does that mean someone might throw up in your car if you're working late night bars? It does. Does that mean dealing with weirdos at late nights? It does. There are benefits and negatives to it, but if you're driving at 8 a.m. on a Monday because you want to work 8 to 5, you're going to be dealing with traffic. And we make more money per mile than we do per minute. Traffic is not our friend. So if you're working at 8 a.m. and you're getting a whole bunch of bad rides, it's going to suck. Your cancellation rates are going to decrease because you picked a bad time of the day to work. And that's not every market. Markets change here, markets change there. But I think that setting a hardcore, like, I'm not taking any rides that are less than $10 per whatever, I don't think is the best way to approach rideshare. I think that you need to have some flexibility. You need to be willing to try things, right? You 3 months ago taking a ride from XYZ to the airport might not have been worth it. You should go back and review that. Should you let me try this once or twice. Let me see what happens after I drop this passenger off. Sometimes the algorithms will give you a ride to a busier part of town. So you have people that might be sitting in a part of town and they're just declining. Like, man, what's up with all these garbage rides? And it's because they're in a garbage part of town. But if they take that ride and it puts them in a busier part of town, they could work out better. So, like, what you see on paper isn't always the full story. You don't know what kind of tip you're gonna get. You don't know where that ride is gonna put you. And the more you learn your market is the better you can answer these things. But there needs to be flexibility in what you're willing to accept in order to continuously test and retest your market. So that's kind of what I believe. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to rant about that. Mark says, bro, I did 62 hours last week pushing myself and I made top Atlanta. Help me learn my market more. Let's go. I love it. I always recommend that, especially if you're a new driver, don't know if he's new or not, you put the hours in and you try to figure out your market, you will benefit from it. Now, from that 62 hours that he's worked, he probably knows when traffic starts to end, when traffic starts to start, what time he should be going out on the road, when should he be, sorry, my phone's ringing, when he should be leaving. Like, the fastest way to learn your market is just to drive. Like, if I were to move to a brand new market, I'd probably pull a 70-hour week. I'd probably just do 12 hours every day, 1 week at the same time. And then the next week, I'll probably switch my hours up a little bit and just do it. It sounds so rudimentary, it sounds so basic, it sounds so cliche, but the most important thing you can do to make more money is to learn your market. So shout outs to you. 62 hours. That's on the upper limit. That's pretty dope. I think that's okay. You know, 12 hours times 5 is 60. So I don't know how many hours he's averaging per day, but if he were to do 12 hours a day, he still get 2 days off. It's nothing crazy. People think that anything above 40 is crazy, and sure, wouldn't want you working 60 hours for the rest of your life, but it's not that crazy. There's 168 hours in a week. He's only worked 68 of them, 62 of them. He has over 100 hours left to sleep, eat, and do whatever he wants. It's not that bad, especially if you're sprinting to a goal. Sprint, sprint, sprint. I respect it. I respect the hustles. I love it. Monk says, I never gambled, save the stock market. I like it. I have Patreon, but I can't get the spreadsheet from it. I will. Can't get the spreadsheet from. There's a link. Just request access, and I'll approve you. Damien says volume okay. Thanks. Perfect. Awesome. It's official. He needs diapers every week. This happens, little Jake. Well, so what happens is he's talking about me going to the bathroom. What happens is if I don't drink enough water, you'll hear my lips smacking on the mic, and I hate that. So I am usually dehydrated, and I do want to fix it. But as a driver, if I drink too much, I have to use the bathroom a lot. It's really bad that I'm not drinking as much as I should be drinking in order to avoid using the bathroom. But I have a solution. I'm not going to tell you what the solution is. I'm going to make a video about it, and we're going to see how that goes. But I do water up as much as possible before I start the day of. I need to get better at watering up yesterday, the day before. Caleb says, hello, Caleb. Welcome to the Future Rideshare Millionaire Podcast. Man, that feels good. I came up with a really good name. It's a little mouthy, a lot of words, a lot of syllables, but man, it feels good. It feels good. Damien says, like transparency on top drivers. Example, 1,500 to 2,000 week drivers, total full-time drivers, 10,000 allows percentage of calculation. Thanks. I don't really know. I don't know what you mean. I need some more words from you. Damien says, seems like locals in my market don't tip, especially short rides. Maybe. If you're dealing with a bunch of college students, that could be the case. I have a bunch of tourists that come to my town. So, tourists tend to tip a little better. Signaling says, thank you. Another quick question. Does the rider star rating to you play a factor in accepting a ride? It depends on my goal. I do look at it. So from a security standpoint, I will consider it more often. Like if I'm going to a neighborhood I'm not sure of, I'll pull up their rating. I look at how many rides they've taken and things like that. But it's not always the full story. I found that people with the worst ratings usually have babies and no car seats. But I'll just cancel in their face if that's the case. I don't really play that game. Sometimes people will rate someone poorly because they don't want to get matched with them because they think it's a bad ride, right? So that plays a role into it. So if I accept a ride and it's going from downtown to my house, that person could have a bad rating, but only because drivers use the rating system to not match with people. But I'm very good at de-escalation. I used to be a district manager, used to be a store manager. I'm very good at customer service. So what someone can interpret as a bad passenger, I can usually work with. To me, the only bad passengers that I've ever have, and I can remember for being bad, so there's only two types so far. One is someone who throws up in your car. Not a fan. Just not a fan. Don't throw up in my car, and I can work through most social situations. The second one was actually recent, within the last month. Passenger ordered the Lyft. I picked her up. It was a short ride. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. It was like a 3-minute ride. I'm down for it. She adds a stop after I accept, and she wanted to go to a hot dog stand to get a hot dog. And I told her I'm not going to do that. And then she slammed my door. I rated her 1 star because I just don't want to get matched with her again. But for the most part, I have a very high tolerance for people. I expect people to be people. Unless they're causing some form of physical harm or they're being extremely difficult, they're trying to add a bunch of stops, I don't really rate them negative. I don't really pay attention to their ratings, it's usually just for security reasons. Frankie and Kaylee said, working 4 a.m. to 2 to 4 p.m. every day has been great for me so far in 3 different major cities. Great for making a healthy schedule too, going to gym, making time for fiance, with having a regular 9 to 5. So yeah, I can speak some more into that. I think that generally speaking, this changes from market to market, but generally speaking, you want to drive when other drivers don't want to drive. You want to drive when there's less traffic. You want to drive when passengers need to be picked up, and that's usually during those times. I like to wake up at 3 a.m. I know 3 a.m. is the dead period, but I wake up at 3 a.m. I'll get myself ready to leave. I'll leave by 3:20, and I'll get downtown for airport rides. Like if you live near an airport and like you can kind of figure out when flights first start, you can get major bonuses by focusing in on those early rides. You can wake up 4 a.m., drive 3-4 hours until 7-8 a.m. when traffic starts. I go home. I actually, all right. Okay. Here's a good secret. I'm not a fan of driving during traffic, but I have intentionally put myself in a position to where I'm having to figure out how to circumvent traffic, right? Because I want to make, not everyone has the capabilities to work overnight. You have kids, you have things you have to do. So while I'm not a supporter of driving through traffic, I did work out a pretty solid strategy for overcoming traffic. For example, I'm gonna have to pull up a map. It'll make explaining this a lot easier. I'm a map. 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 Okay, so this is Charleston. So this is my market. I have found this isn't going to be the case in every city, but during rush hour, if I am downtown, traffic is bearable. It's not that bad, right? But getting downtown is a nightmare, right? We are a port city. We have a lot of trucks that come down I-26. This is I-26 right here, and I live up here, like off the map somewhere up here. If I wake up early before traffic starts and drive downtown and stay downtown, I can survive traffic. If at any point I don't want to do this anymore and I want to go home, there's no traffic heading back up because it's the opposite direction. The same is true on the flip side. So if when like 5 p.m., traffic is now trying to head north, it's going away from downtown and is heading north. So if I start all the way at the edge of my city and use a destination filter to only give me rides towards downtown, there won't be any traffic in that direction, or there'll be a lot less traffic. Now, you may still have to get off the highway, deal with a little bit of traffic to pick up that passenger. And then once you're back on the highway, there's no traffic heading back to where you're going. There are some flaws with this, right? If it's slow, it doesn't work very well because most people are trying to go in the opposite direction. So it's going to take longer to get a ride. The good thing about it is when you're using Lyft and you're using the destination filter, rides will still pop up if it's going in the direction that doesn't coincide with your destination filter. So you can still make the decision to pick it up, right? Sometimes it could be a short ride, but what happens is that traffic will usually cause a lot of surges. And if you're able to capitalize on those surges while circumventing traffic, that's probably the best way to make money during traffic periods. It's not always going to be it. I'm a little blessed that there's, I can set in a lot of places that are landlocked. You can see I have water right here. You'll have to be worrying about traffic in all directions going away from the city. I don't really have to deal with that. So that could play a role into it. But the more you learn your market, is the more you'll be able to use what I just said. So a lot of people might watch my content and say to themselves, I can't use that in my market. And I think that if you think that, it's because you don't know your market well enough. Like you're not going to be able to use 100%. All right, let me start over. I tried to teach people strategy so that they can have different strategies available to them to use in their market. I might use a hammer more than you need a hammer, but there will be scenarios in which you can use your hammer, right? But if the only tool you have is a screwdriver, in situations where you have a hammer, or you need a hammer, you're going to want to use a screwdriver, but you shouldn't. It's not the most efficient tool. So when you're watching my content, when you're learning from me, don't just say, oh, that's never going to work in my market. That's lazy. Don't do that. It's how can I take this advice that Tristan is giving me and how can I apply it to my market, even though my market isn't his market, right? My market's highly tourist based with some student based in it as well. And when the students are gone for holidays, the tourists don't come, it sucks, it hurts. And I have to use a new strategy to move forward. So my videos, just learn from them. Don't dismiss them. Don't say, oh, Tristan's in a great market, because you know what? Tristan isn't is I my market has some benefits. It's great. But if you were to say, oh man, Tristan's making all this money and it's only because his market is great, I'm going to show you this where it says the average driver in Charleston makes $23.39, but my average is $49.08, right? My like market matters, but how you approach your market matters even more. Even if you're in a bad market, if you want to maximize your income in your market, you should continuously be trying to find new strategies to do that. So don't dismiss what I'm saying. Figure out how to bridge that gap. Figure out what is the best driver in your market doing, and what do I have to do to bridge that gap. So don't just get lazy and say it's the market. Don't do that. Okay, let's move forward. We're going to start talking about news and things like that. Minneapolis is in the news, of course. There's some positive developments that we're going to go through. But before we get there, we're going to do that towards the end. There's some kind of PSAs. I try not to cover crime too much, but I think that if you're in one of these cities, it's important for you to be aware of what's going on. And I am trying to navigate to my tabs. There we go. They're over here. All right, so this first one is for Chicago. Anyone who's driving in Chicago, just be aware of what's happening. It says police warn of armed robbers targeting rideshare and delivery drivers on West Side. I don't know what West Side means. You'll know more than I will. Chicago police were warning rideshare and food delivery drivers about a string of armed robberies on the same block in the Austin neighborhood. This isn't Chicago, this is Austin. In each of the robberies, as drivers drop off customers or deliver food, a group of 1 to 4 men in masks run out of a home nearby, points guns, and takes their belongings. So this seems to be a group of people doing majority of these robbings because they're happening in the same area and it's the same situation. Police said that there have been 5 similar robberies since early February in the 5100 block of West Washington Boulevard. Detectives have only a vague description of the robbers, who wear black ski masks and all black clothing. I might have to change my outfit. Anyone with information on the robberies is asked to call Area 4 detectives at 312-746-8253. So if you're in Austin, pay attention to this. Avoid anything that's going around this area. That's the best thing I can say for you guys. So the next one up is this? It says Chicago. Is there in Austin, Chicago? Is that what it is? It must be. I thought that. Okay, so there you go. If you're in Chicago, South Austin, I have to confirm now. South Austin, Chicago. I want to see where it is on the map. Okay, so all right. So there's a place called Austin in Chicago. It's not actually in Austin. All right, cool. I just wanted to throw it out there just in case anyone is from Chicago. I'm not trying to scare you guys. You have to do what you have to do to make money, but do it as safely as possible. That's it. This stuff isn't worth dying over. If you're getting robbed, it's gonna suck. Just give it up. Just give it up. All right, so New York City has some changes that are happening. I have a lot of views from New York City. So really quickly, we're gonna go through this story. It says New York rideshare taxi passengers bracing wallets for double barrel fees as drivers worry about income crash gonna kill us. So let's see what they're gonna say. It says we're about to get taken for a ride twice. Big Apple taxi passengers have quietly paying a congestion price fee for years, and now another fee is about to be piled on when the full pricing plan comes into effect this summer, the Post has learned. The double barrel cash grab could add more than $5 to many rides, and drivers are fearing their income is about to crash. The one they put on years ago was hurting the business. It's going to be worse now, said Destiny Maduka, a father of 2 whose driven a hack for 22 years. What does that even mean? This one they are adding is gonna kill us. Since 2019, every yellow cab has had a $2.50 congestion fee slapped on, while trips using app-based car services such as Uber and Lyft have had a $2.75 fee. The toll applies to any non-shared trip that starts, ends, or travels through Manhattan south of 96th Street. Now, the final phase of the controversial new congestion pricing plan will stack an additional fee of $1.25 on traditional cabs and $2.50 on app-based rides, an additional. So it's about, yeah, it's over $5 for Uber and Lyft drivers in total. This could lead to a total fee as high as $5.25 for rides starting or passing through the affected parts of Manhattan. And they also have to pay a toll for certain times of the day to drive in that financial district. The latest phase of congestion pricing is set to kick in mid-June, which will formally impose the bitterly contested $15 toll hike for all cars entering Manhattan below 60th Street during daytime hours. I don't understand if this in conjunction with it. Are you gonna have to do both? The latest phase of congestion pricing is set to kick in by mid-June, which will formally impose. What does that mean? Formally impose. Is that in conjunction? I'm not 100% sure. Cabs will not have to pay the $15 fee, okay, but riders will foot the bill for the smaller double barrel ride fees for any ride that traverses the designated zone. An MTA spokesperson told the Post Friday. But what does that mean for rideshare drivers, for like Uber and Lyft drivers? You can see that cabs don't have to do that. They don't have to pay that. And instead, they'll have to just pay the increased fee, which I think putting the fee there instead of charging $15 every time they go in and out is better, but it still sucks that this is what they're doing. Drivers say the multiple layers of fees will be hard on an industry still finding its post-pandemic footing. Maduka said that added pressure makes him want to run away from New York. That's what I did. I'm from New York. I didn't run away for financial reasons, but I'm not going back for financial reasons. I'm from Queens. New York is not for people like us anymore, he said with a laugh. Another cab driver, Abdul Azea, said he's still feeling the effects of the 2019 surcharge. And this article is written within the last week. You know, any article I share here is it's from within the last week. I lost customers and never got them back. Even up to today, customers are talking about it because they feel it too. I don't know, man. Says as most Uber drivers, the Post approached Friday declined to comment, but one who didn't want to share his name said any increased pressure on their bottom line would be harder to bear. We already don't make that much money in general, and it's going to be bad for Uber drivers. We're going to have less passengers, the driver said. Despite the fees, ride-sharing behemoth Uber has unapologetically endorsed the Big Apple's congestion toll proposal. That's weird that they would take that stance. Congestion that slows travel times and frustrates riders and drivers is bad for business. Makes sense. In fact, our top cities are ones where robust public transportation options serve as the backbone of daily commute, Uber wrote on a company blog post last year. That's an interesting stance to take. I can understand it, but it's still an interesting stance to take. The MTA, which is the Metropolitan Transit Authority, on Friday told the Post that the current cab fees have raised a significant amount of money for the authority, which has been spent to upgrade mass transit. The fees have raised nearly 1.5 billion from 2019 to 2023 and have gone toward the MTA's subway action plan and outer borough train service, they said. That sucks. It sucks that they're creating a tax for rideshare drivers that will improve public transportation, which in theory would make it harder for rideshare drivers to make more money. In theory, right? There's some play and give to it, but it is an interesting stance to take. Let's see what some of the comments are saying. Scott says it simply does not make sense. What if the $15 congestion fee is more than the total fare for the ride? So I don't think he understands. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm the one who doesn't understand. He says try reading the article. So I don't think he understands how it works. Can the MTV provide a breakdown of where that 1.5 billion went? Okay. All right. So if you're in New York, this is something to be aware of. Going back to how we started this conversation, a driver who is debt free and has a budget and is being intentional about where their money goes won't be as worried about this as someone who is living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, cashing out every single day to pay for their gas. Need to break that cycle. And yes, New York City is an expensive city, but at the same time, that's even more a reason why you should be budgeting, why you should be paying attention to your money and just trying to make better decisions. All right, let's see what's up next. This is kind of the last of the PSA, public service announcements. This is OKC rideshare driver says scammer took $200 from her earnings, and I just kind of want to highlight this. It doesn't matter where you are; these scammers are out there. They tried to get me before, but I'm I'm not gonna say I'm not dumb. I'm less susceptible. Some of these scams are pretty intuitive, and I can understand how someone who's not aware of it can fall for it. So every now and then, I want to make sure I'm presenting situations to you where other people are taken advantage of so that you can avoid it happening to you. Because man, if I work 12 hours in a day, I made $200, $250, $300, whatever that number is, and someone scammed me out of it, it would hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it would hurt. I'd move on from it, but it would still suck, and it would suck even more to get your account back. So let's see what happened to this lady and what we can do to make sure it doesn't happen to us. An Oklahoma City mother says she was scammed while working as a rideshare driver. She said the scammer posed as Uber support employee and took all her earnings for the night. That was pretty traumatizing, said Uber driver Desiree. Purnell says that she has a routine. Before I leave my driveway, I say a prayer. It's a prayer for safety during her shifts as a driver. There's so many fear factors that come with it. It's scary. You just don't know who's getting in your car. The mother of 5 takes the risk each time she's on the road to supplement her income. The little bit of extra money that I do make, it goes toward taking care of my family. During her drives on Sunday, she said her livelihood was threatened, and not by someone who got in her car, but someone who called her through the Uber app. The person said they were Uber support, she said. Pernod said the person on the phone told her a rider complained she was drinking alcohol and speeding. She was told to pull over and verify some information. So right off the bat, some a very good solid advice that I've gotten when it comes to scams in general, not just Uber and Lyft related, is that scammers will always try to create a sense of urgency. They will concoct some scenario in which you have to do something, and the faster you do it, the better off you are. So if you ever feel like you're being pushed to do something, take a deep breath, stop, and reevaluate. She says it was so real in that moment. After nearly an hour, the person she was in the clear. Hold on. After nearly an hour, the person said she was in the clear and would be compensated $150 for her time. Come on. We know Uber's not doing that. However, once they got her Uber account information, it took her day's wages, she says. Immediately, I saw in the app where my funds had gone from one something to none. She said, I was so shocked. I sat in my car and I cried for hours. Oh, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her. She man, can't talk. She lost nearly $200. What was worse, it was her daughter's 7th birthday. I did all of that and then I didn't have anything. This is the whole reason why I'm out driving at 4 in the morning to make sure she has the birthday she deserves. So here's someone else. She's driving at waking up early, hustling, getting that 4 a.m. money together. I know that it's a thing. I know that it's out there, but why did I not see the red flags? It's sad. And the thing is, I just want other people to be aware of what's happening in our society. Unfortunately, people are taking from other people. And, the more things are inflated, the harder it becomes to make money. That's when crime goes up. And this is a crime. It's not, a physical crime, but it's still a crime. Parno said she contacted Uber to dispute the transfer and was told the investigation would take up to 90 days to resolve. Uber, you gotta do better than that. Oh, we have an update. Tommy and Nancy Young saw this story on Monday. The couple met Desiree Purnell to give her money to make up for what she lost. The church, Sunny Lane Family Church in Del City, also gave her an additional donation. The couple said the story touched their hearts and they just wanted to make sure Desiree could give her daughter the birthday she deserves. I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading this, I was like thinking to myself, man, I wish I could just send her $200. And if I were debt free, had my emergency fund together, and doing all the other great things I should be doing, that's something I would think about. I want to be in a position where I can give, and I hope to be there soon. But I'm glad she's been made whole, at least by people who care more about her than Uber does. And hopefully Uber makes it whole too, So that's kind of it for the PSA. We are going to start talking about Minneapolis. Well, no, I forgot about this. We actually have to talk about the protests. I'll go through the protests, and then after the protests, I'll check in on the comments, and then after the comments, we have some important developments that's being made in Minneapolis that I'm excited to talk about. I'm actually really excited to talk about it because it's not all doom and gloom. I've been very hard hitting on this whole Minneapolis situation, and I'm happy that there's finally something I can speak more positively about, even though there are some things that I think should still be addressed and can still go wrong. But let's talk about this rideshare driver protest that no one knew about. Let me stop. I'm being kind of mean. But a lot of my Uber and Lyft drivers, even the content creators, they just weren't aware of this protest. I feel like the last protest that happened on what day was that? I don't remember what the day was, but I feel like the last protest that happened earlier this year had way more of a following and knowing and understanding. So let's just check in on this protest and see what it was about. It says on Monday, dozens of rideshare drivers rallied outside the San Francisco headquarters of Uber and Lyft. The drivers are demanding better pay and job security. Several dozen protesters attended Monday's protest, saying that rideshare companies need to do more to support drivers. They say that drivers are dealing with low pay, high fees, and dangerous working conditions. Drivers at Monday's protest also believe that these companies have made it hard for drivers to earn a living. A lot of drivers sleep in their cars, they come from far away, they are homeless in their cars. What kind of humanity is that? Someone has to sleep in their cars to provide for their families, said Zora Manriquez, who drives Uber and Lyft. I will say, if you have to do this, it is unfortunate that you have to do it. And it's important to create a life where you don't have to do that anymore, right? So if Uber and Lyft present day are causing you to live in a way that you don't find conducive to how you want to live forever, you have to figure out an exit strategy. You can't just sit there and let it happen over and over. It sounds insensitive to say, but if Uber and Lyft are taking advantage of you and there is nothing you can do to fix it, you have to find a different plan. However, I do believe that there are things that we can do to soften the blow, right? We talked about creating a budget, we talk about paying off our debts, we talk about being more intentional with our income. And of course, we don't know what this family's income is. However, I will say it is average of Americans to be broke, right? I'm American, talking about myself here. The average thing is to not have enough money. The normal thing is to overspend. The normal thing is to get a car loan. The normal thing is to use credit cards. The normal thing is not to even have a budget. Most people don't have budgets. I I have higher expectations for those of you who consume my content, and I don't want you to be sleeping in your car unless it's part of a game plan so that you never have to sleep in your car. You see what I'm saying? Like, create a plan where you're gonna hustle for a year and you're gonna do some things that you never thought you'd have to do. But while you're doing it, you're being intentional about where that money that you make is going so that you never have to do it again. That's the only caveat here is I feel like culture it kind of takes a poo poo on people who want to put the hours in, work hard to do something, and it's usually because they think that it's something we have to do for the rest of our lives. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be intense for a short period of time so that we can focus on being intentional and just living better, having a better life. So the article says they are also concerned about the growth of self-driving car technology and worry that it could one day put drivers out of work completely. I want to talk about this. So some of you are already thinking in your head, that's never going to happen, or it's far from happening. And here's what I have to say about that. Even if you disagree that Uber and Lyft will be capable of having self-driving cars that will replace us, you can't deny the fact that Uber and Lyft have said in press releases that their goal is to replace us, right? So whether they fail or not, it's kind of irrelevant. We are working for companies that want to replace us. You can't deny that. That's out there. It's in writing. You can go to their websites. You can find where they have said this. So even if you disagree that this will ever come to fruition, we're working companies who at their core have already decided they want to replace us. So we'll start there. Secondly, this has already been happening in certain cities. Uh, uh, this isn't the example, but because I know they've made some progress recently, I'm going to bring them up. And that's Waymo in Arizona. So we can do a quick side here. So here's an article. It says Waymo's driverless cars are finally ready for the highway. The company is testing highway trips with its employees as passengers, but it expects to allow non-employees access in the near future, right? A lot of people think that this technology is so far away. And sure, there are some government regulations that needs to happen, but even in Vegas, you have cars, self-driving cars that will show up when someone orders an Uber or Lyft, right? And just 10 cars, 10 self-driving cars on the road can have an impact on overall driver earnings for everyone. And Waymo recently put a bunch on the road in Arizona. So you might think it's far away, it might not be in your city yet. But the problem is, if you wait until they show up in your city to start taking your finances seriously, you're going to suffer, because shifting your finances doesn't happen in 3 months. It doesn't happen in 6 months. It takes time. Even if you want to pivot to a new career, get a new job, that takes time too. You don't want to be caught with your pants down. So, yes, you might not think it's going to happen, but if you wait until it's too late, it's going to be harder, right? I'm already working under the assumption that every year moving forward, it's going to be harder to make the same amount of money as the year before. So I'm treating today as the best possible day to make as much money as possible, because tomorrow is not guaranteed, right? And with that mindset, I think that it's going to become harder to use Uber and Lyft to get your finances together, right? Because a lot of the people I started during the pandemic. I'm a rideshare pandemic baby. A lot of the drivers that I've spoken to said the pandemic was an anomaly. Pay did go up because of supply and demand, but we're currently back to where we started before the pandemic, where there was a year over year decrease in pay, right? The amount of the driver said they used to get 80% of the fare back when Uber first started. Now we're barely getting like 30-40%. So if we're just looking based off of trajectory, the amount of money they're willing to pay drivers, or at least split with drivers, is decreasing. So to me, that says it's only going to become more difficult to make money moving forward. So the best time to make money is now. That you see how I work there, how I brought that back to that idea. That's what I believe. And if you're waiting until driverless cars show up in your city to try to either pivot out of rideshare or to put yourself in a financial position to where you don't need rideshare, it's too late. It's way too late. So don't wait too long. Don't have your blinders on. Like 10 years ago, we never even thought self-driving cars would have been a thing. Tesla kind of brought it to the forefront, and in a short period of time. And the way these cars learn is that they communicate with each other. If this driverless car hits a speed bump, not a speed bump, yeah, hits a speed bump too hard, it's going to communicate with all the other drivers, all the other 100 cars in the fleet to say, hey, there's a speed bump here. When you get close to it, slow down. And that's happening several times. It's like the way these things learn is exponential. They're only going to get better at what they do. I know there's a lot of videos out there showing them not working, how easy they can be interfered with, but all of that data is going to be processed and used to make these things better. So don't sleep on this technology. Don't. Okay, let me go back to where I was. Okay, so it said it would, back to the story, it would affect a lot of people to where they would be without a job. So they're protesting to stop that. And sure, government regulations might get in the way, but I don't know. I just feel like your time is better spent protecting yourself from this change than trying to stop this change, right? And that's nothing against the people who are trying to stop it. They're doing work that benefits people who would benefit from it. But I like to focus my advice more on what can you as the individual do while these other people are doing things around us. And that goes for Minnesota as well. I think that there are enough YouTubers who focus on how they can stick it to Uber and Lyft. I kind of want to be the YouTuber that teaches people how to manage their finances while Uber and Lyft might be sticking it to them, right? I'm not saying that one fight is more important than the other fight. I just think that there's enough people trying to stick it to Uber and Lyft. And, I'll speak out against them when I feel the need to do so. But my focus is, how can we get you to position to where when Uber and Lyft are sticking it to us, it doesn't hurt as much because we have a good financial defense set up, or because we're planning to transition out of it. So yeah, that's kind of where my content leans and where I'm going to continue leading. In a statement to Cron 4, Lyft said, "We are constantly working to improve the driver experience, which is why just this February we released a series of new offers and commitments aimed at increasing driver pay and transparency." Not really. I always never care to read what Uber and Lyft have to say about things because it's all just PR. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. So I'm going to jump into the comments and then we're going to focus in on a couple different stories that relate to Minneapolis, right? And paying attention to what's going on over there. Mike B says a bad passenger is a person who is fat and breaks your suspension. He's going through it. Someone who was extra large got into his car and he started hearing clicking noises since then. I'm sorry. Damien says, Tristan, you must have good techniques finding and picking up passengers fast. Any tips for airports? I put on flashers and message flashers wave. For short rides, do you have any tips to speed up? Um, I'll call them. I think that's your best bet. It's just to call them. I usually give them like a grace period of like 2 minutes, and of course with Lyft you have to wait 5 minutes before you can cancel. But I'll call them at 3 minutes. If I think sometimes I can kind of tell when someone doesn't know I'm there, or I can tell that they know I'm there and they're just dragging their feet. I don't know how I'm able to tell. I need to pay more attention when it's happening, but I'll just call. And I do have a light inside my car that shines purple that I flash. I don't really. I'll have to put more thought into it, and I'll have to get back to you about what I actually do to close the gap on making sure people are getting in my car as quickly as possible. You could always send a text. I know there's some pre-written text that Uber and Lyft allow you to send. You want to let them know that you're there without annoying them that you're there, right? That's the best I can say for now, but I'll put more thought into it and pay more attention to what I'm doing when I'm actually out there. Demi says also, anyone else screen freeze up periodically? Mine is like 5 minutes or more. I don't have that issue. Sigmund says, appreciate you, keep the good work. Thank you. Frankie and Kaylee said 3 a.m. is a whole different level. I'm trying to get at that early though. It's sometimes for example, I'll do this podcast and then I'll start like editing it because I chop up the podcast into like videos and put them out. And that'll take me up until like 2 a.m. And then I'll just go drive at 3 a.m., drive until 7, come home, sleep. And then, that's kind of the circle. But sometimes I'll wake up that early. What I have to do is I have to put my phone in the bathroom. And when I turn off the alarm, I just sit on the toilet. Until I can wake up and get going. But I struggle waking up early. My preference, especially when I'm going hard, is to go to sleep without an alarm. And when I wake up, I usually only sleep like 5 to 6 hours. My sleep score is like 90%. I'm a pretty good sleeper. And that's normally what I do. But if I'm on a time crunch and it's required of me to wake up at a specific time to do rides, I'll just set my alarm, put my phone in the bathroom so that when I turn it off, I'm in the bathroom. I'm halfway to being awake. So that's a pretty good tip if you struggle waking up. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll set my alarm on my watch so that if I can turn off the alarm on my watch 5 minutes before the alarm in the bathroom goes off so I don't wake my wife, I'll do it. But I'm not always successful. Sometimes I snooze it. Mog says, I need to use my destination filter. I haven't really tinkered around with it yet, but Lyft provides better bonuses in my market, so I drive it almost exclusively until it kicks me off. You're saying two things to me, right? You're saying that you don't use your destination filter and it's because Lyft provides better bonuses in your market. I'm going to push back and say that if Lyft is providing bonuses in your market, it's even more important to use those destination filters. So I'll show you something. I'm going to use this tab, so I'm not creating new tabs. Let's go to YouTube. So it's a really good video that I have. It's a little outdated in the sense that I don't think ride streaks exist anymore, but the principle of what I teach in that video can still be
Great on
applied
longer days.
even without the streaks that are involved. Oh my God, look how clean shaven I looked. Oh man. But even without streaks, so you can see I'm using the stay within an area filter. If you're using the stay within an area filter and you're in a zone that has a lot of bonuses that will pop up, even if you pick up a passenger from this zone who's going like somewhere over here with no zone, at least you're still close enough to drive back, right? So you can take a bunch of short rides that have the bonuses there. And that's kind of why I said earlier, where I'm picking passengers up, I'm dropping them off, turning the app off, and I'm dead heading back to the bonus area. So sure, you're not going to get a ride driving back, but you're getting back to the bonus zone quicker. So that's not the only strategy you should use. You should determine when the best time to use it is. But if you're only driving and you're staying online until the app kicks you off, you might be losing money in certain scenarios, depending on your market. That's how I used to drive. And there are times where I still do that. Like if it's slow and there's not really a lot of bonuses popping up, I'll kind of just keep the app on and rotate through. But like I said, different strategies for different scenarios, and you have to get more flexible and step outside of your box. In this particular video, I knew that around this time, around this area, there are going to be bonuses. So yes, it says $3, but I know once I move forward, I knew that was going to happen. I'm working on a spreadsheet that will help you guys figure out when bonuses will appear. But I do want to say that a big part of it is knowing what's happening in your market. I knew that there was a concert going on up here, and I knew a lot of drivers would get stuck up there. So I usually stay within an area filter to make sure I don't get rides from up here, because there's gonna be too much traffic. Like, yeah, that $15 bonus looks fantastic, but picking up people from this area after a concert is a nightmare. Like cell reception gets really bad over here, and I knew that because I know my market very well, and I knew that with all this area started surging first. So all the drivers that were downtown, they went up here, and I chilled down here because I knew better. And then the bonus peaked. It's gonna take me a couple weeks, but I'm gonna make a video where there's like 5 different ways to predict bonuses at different levels, at different intervals, and I'm gonna put all that information out there for you guys. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, but I'm gonna share that with you. But you need to know when to use the tools that you have, and sometimes the only way to really know is trial and error. So, try it and see how you like it. Jamie says, yeah, let's throw that in. If working long hours and getting over fatigued, just take a nap. Works every time. Continue when you feel you can. If night time, there are convenience stores. I use Wawa. Yeah, just even getting out your car. If you're feeling a little like sluggish, whatever, getting out your car, munching on something, and getting back in. Like sometimes I feel like I want to go home, and I go to the gas station. I use the bathroom, and then I'm good. I'm good for another couple of hours. So that is some good advice. Monk says sometimes the destination filter gives you extra time. I get 4 hours from one. I haven't had that experience, but I have access to 6 destination filters as an elite driver, and just having that many destination filters is worth it to me. I'm able to use the head towards destination. I live like 25 minutes from downtown, so head towards destination, that's one. I can stay downtown for 4 stay within an area filters. That's 12 hours at 3 hours a piece. And then on my way back home, I can use the head towards destination filter again to get a ride back home. So it does make a difference. I think it's important. Getting elite in certain markets is a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. But I believe that sometimes you're gonna have to take bad rides to maintain elite. But I think that you're losing the battle to win the war, depending on your market. But the only way to know for sure is to test it. And it's really hard to get elite. I'm not even gonna front. It's difficult. I think it's difficult in my market, and my market seems to be the lower one. There's thresholds to become elite, and from what I've seen from all the people I've spoken to, sometimes there's like double mine. I feel bad for them. But with that being said, they might have more opportunity to generate points. I can only generate points really on Friday, Saturday night. That's like the majority. Like that's the only time frame I really have to generate points. Mike B says, yeah, normally works when you do one from 9 p.m. to 12. It will go till 1 one most nights. Oh, that's good to know. And they do reset at 12. So that is part of the strategy as well. I wish they would reset when the day resets, but they don't. But keep that in mind. So what I would do is if you have extra destination filters, I would cancel your, like, as it's getting closer to midnight, I would cancel your destination filter at like 11:50, and if you have one more, use that one at 11:50 so that it carries you to 2:50, right? Without subtracting from your next day's filters. So that's something I do keep in mind, because and I don't drive 12, 16 hours every day. So sometimes I do have filters left over, and I'll just make sure I'm trying to use the ones from the day before, so I'm not tapping into the next day. Might be says like using it on Thursday when the busy hours are from 9 to 12:30. That one filter will get you all of that. Rideshare Roadie says, "Sup Tristan, you changed your channel name." I did. We are now Future Rideshare Millionaire. We rebranded today. I was planning to do this at 10,000. The other name was too general, too broad, and I'm gonna save it for a different YouTube channel. So Money Talk will come back someday, where it focuses on bigger economic things and budgeting and money talk and stuff like that. But I wanted to come up with something that was more fitting to what I'm trying to do with my life. And the goal is to use rideshare as a stepping stone that creates a life where my bills are low, my debt is paid off, and the goal is to become a millionaire, you know? So I've changed. Mog says, "Yo, I grew up in Jamaica. That's crazy. I left due to the craziness of the pandemic, but will never go back because the cost of living. My apartment in LIC is now $4,250. That's really high." When you said Jamaica, I thought you meant the island, because I am from Jamaica as well. I lived there from when I was 11 till I was 16 years old. But nice, yeah. I lived in Queens. I went to Flushing High School. I used to take the bus from Rosedale to Flushing every single day. That's like almost 2 hours one way. So this is what it is. LIC, yeah. So LIC is really expensive now. That used to be like not where you want to live, but it's gotten nice. I've heard 4,250. Man, that's a lot of money. Tomcat says hello. Hello. Damien says, "Tristan, when is a quest not worth it per 100 rides? 15, 25, 75. Also, what is the best quest you've ever got prorated per 100 rides?" I've never got prorated a quest, but the best quest I've ever had was like for $460. That was through Lyft, so not through Uber. Uber doesn't give me very great quests. When do I for starters, I try not to leave free money on the table. Free. I try not to leave extra money on the table. For example, I currently have a quest that's pretty not great because I'm a procrastinator. I'll show it to you. Let me move this. If I were paying attention, I probably would have tried it. So here it is. So this is total is $235. It's pretty good, but the amount of rides they require of me is pretty high. So we're talking about 125 rides over the course of 4 days, which I can do. But because I wasn't paying attention yesterday and I didn't drive yesterday, I would have to do 40 rides today on Tuesday, the slowest day of the week, and then do 40 to 45 rides on Wednesday, and then 40 to 45 rides on Thursday. That's really hard to do in 3 days. In 4 days, I could do this. I really could have done this in 4 days, but it's too late. Now I might focus on getting the first part of it, but even then, it's $100, 85 rides. It's not how I decide if it's worth it is it possible within a time frame that I'm willing to work. So I could have different things happening that week, and today this isn't worth it because the time frame in which I have to do this means I would have to fall behind on some of the YouTube stuff I have going on or personalized stuff I have going on. But if I have it, part of it is my fault, right? I procrastinated. I wasn't really paying attention to it, and I should have. And now I suffer a loss of $235 because of who I am as a person. But I'm working on it. But I don't think I for sure don't hit the $235. I could hit the $105 over the course of 3 days, right? It's like 30 rides per day, rounding up. That's that's reasonable, but I'd have to make sacrifices. So I don't have a hard line in how I make my decisions. It's more of, can I do this in an amount of time that is reasonable to me, right? And sometimes reasonable might be, yeah, I can work 18 hours for the next 3 days, you know, but it just depends on what I have going on. And right now, doing this whole thing, considering that I missed out on yesterday because of I'm a procrastinator, isn't reasonable. But this was reasonable yesterday, and I should have been paying more attention to it. But it's okay. We just want to make sure we're winning more than we're losing, and I've been doing a good job of winning more often with these challenges. Good question. Uber's Quest sucks. Damien says, Tristan, what is? Oh yes, same question. Damien, okay, no, on top drivers list, how many total drivers over 1,500 week two? How many total drivers are full time? Don't know how many of them are full time. We can scroll to see how many drivers made over 1,500. Um, just keep in mind, this is only drivers who have this app. I'm pretty sure there's way more drivers that don't have this app. All right, so here's the 1,500 mark. Columbus, 153 drivers made over 1,500. I don't really know if that's good or bad. I don't really know what I'm comparing here, but there's a lot of cities in here. Atlanta, Lyft, Uber Eats, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Detroit, San Diego, Vegas, Seattle, San Francisco, Orlando, Baton Rouge, Providence, Reading, Memphis, Sacramento, Orlando, Jacksonville. I don't know what this is. Salinas? I don't know. New York, Houston, Cleveland, Atlanta, Riverside, Denver, Salem, Omaha, Crestview, Chicago, San Diego, Fort Collins. All right, we're gonna finish up these comments and we're gonna start talking about about Minneapolis. My market list is paying me. Yeah, people. Damien says one thing I can say positive about locals: if you give them an unscheduled stop, so far everyone will ask me what can I get for you. That's been my experience here as well. And sometimes I'll do stops. It depends on my mood, depends on what I'm doing. If I'm trying to rack up quick rides, I'm a little more stern. But it just depends on what I have going on. Mog says Tristan getting rizzed by Tristan wasn't on my. That's funny. Mog says Tristan getting rizzed by Tristan wasn't on my bingo card this stream. He's referring to me talking about myself in an older video. What happened was I started putting on a lot of weight, and I when I go back and I just look at the difference with, of myself, I'm always either impressed or disgusted. Not really disgusted, just lack of a better term. But I just notice certain things. Kind of makes me feel like I should clean up a little bit. CVL Daddy says 300 per month on non-commercial insurance, highway robbery in California. They were trying to do that to me, my wife, make us pay almost $500 for our cars, but we switched. So make sure you're always looking around at different deals and see what you can get. We were able to go from $500 with Progressive down to $211 with some other company called Auto Insure or something. It's a smaller company, kind of like mom and pop-ish, but they only accept people with like fantastic driving records. And so we were able to get a break cut. But South Carolina is one of the states that has the highest insurance rates right now, man. It's getting bad. And I hate that drivers who are safe are still shouldering the burden of the drivers who are crashing. That doesn't sound fair to me, but it is what it is. Nia says, Nia or Naya? Not sure. Wait, do you not cash out every day? Uber used to glitch so bad and lock up your money for days at a time that I no longer trust leaving my money in either platform. So yeah, I do leave I don't cash out early because it's 85 cents per cash out and that money adds up. You are correct in saying that there are times where you don't get your money on time for various reasons, banking reasons, glitches, and things like that. I live a life where I'm okay if they hold my money, right? Now, I'm not saying that I want them to hold my money. I am saying that I think that eventually you will get all your money, and even if there's a glitch, I'm okay. Like I put myself in a financial position. I have an emergency fund for my household. I have an emergency fund for my rideshare business. We keep a buffer amount of money in our account, and if I have to wait a little to get more money, that's okay. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. I used to. There used to be a time, I mean, just last year, where the only thing between me being able to drive and me not being able to drive is a quarter tank of gas. And I have to pick up passengers on that quarter tank of gas to make enough money to go buy more gas so I can keep picking up passengers. That's raise a thin line right there, right? Of playing around with my finances. That was a year and change ago. Right now, I've been just every day trying to get better with my money, trying to spend less. It's an active thing that I do every day on my budget. So I'm just living a life to where if I can't have immediate access to the money that I made this week, that's okay, right? Today's Tuesday. I usually get my Lyft money around Wednesday, so the money I made last week is still sitting where it's sitting, and I'm okay. In fact, if I never get that money, I'd still be able to survive this week. So, the amount of, and so this ties back into like kind of how I've been talking about when you have your finances set up in a way that's beneficial or at least different from the average person, you look at scenarios differently. You look at emergencies as inconveniences. So this is a really good example of that. Mog says Uber just sent me an update that they are going to charge $125 each instant payout. Damn. I remember when they went up from like 50 cents to 85 and now it's $1.25. If you drive 200 days out of the 365 days a year, that's $250 that you're going to be spending every year if you cash out every day. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, that's almost maybe 15 gas tanks. And for every gas tank, I can make about $500. At least when it's busy. When it's slow, it's not the same. It's usually about 10x. But you get what I'm saying. That's money. It feels like it's not a lot, but if you keep treating dollars like it's not a lot, it adds up. They have the saying, death by 1,000 cuts. I bet most of us, it's not large spending that's hurting us. It's the little spending we do here, the little spending we do there, because of how we see money. I try to see every penny as something that matters. The second you start saying it's just $1, it's just 50 cents, it adds up. And so I would try to save that money. That's what I would do. And I'm a culprit of it too. When I first started, I was cashing out pretty often. Not because it wasn't even out of fear of, oh man, I might never get this money. It was that I need this money now. I need this money today. And I had to break that habit. It's effort. It's effort. All right, we're gonna read this one comment and then we're gonna go and focus on Minneapolis. We have an hour left. And we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good. I think that we're going to talk about everything I wanted to talk about today. So Mog says, I use the Lyft direct so that I get all my cash immediately. Then I transfer from there. For Uber, I stop cashing out and just let whatever I get from the weekly to my brokerage account. So this is good advice. I too have a Lyft direct card. However, I only use it to put my gas money in. So I'll drive maybe for a day. I'll rack up like $300-$400 and then I'll go into my settings, make that money drop into my Lyft direct account, and I only use it for gas. I could transfer it, but I don't want to have to. That's too much work. It's too much work. So, but Mog has a very good plan. If you're uncomfortable with them holding onto your money, the Lyft Direct card is a good alternative. You don't pay anything for it, and you get gas cash back when you use it. And you can also use the Lyft Direct debit card and put it into Get Upside, so you can double down on getting gas cash back from Get Upside and through Lyft. Does that make sense? Oh, that makes sense. If you're not using Get Upside or Lyft's or Uber's cash gas back, you need to. Unless you bought too much car, gas is your biggest expense, right? Let's go to my spreadsheet real quick. So here are my expenses for so far this year, like January, February, March, April, May, June. I spent $1,132 on gas. Why is my oil change doing that? Oh my God, I just messed something up. Here we go. I fixed it. So you can see gas, $1,132.23. It's my biggest expense so far this year. And as an elite Lyft driver, I'm getting 10% cash back on gas. So I've probably gotten around $100 cash back on gas, which is like 2 to 3 gas tanks, depending on the price of gas. It doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind, per gas tank, I'm making like $300, $400, $500. So to me, that's about $1,500 worth of income through gas if I just work the hours. You just got to treat every dollar like it matters, because it does. It really does. Every nickel makes a muckle. That's what we would say in Jamaica. All right, so let's jump into Minneapolis. This is I get excited to talk about it because we're seeing economics in real time. So the way this is going to work is I have a couple of articles lined up. Some of these articles are going to have like repetitive information in them. I apologize ahead of time, but there are important things in each of these articles that are worth sharing, which is why I picked them out. So the first one we're going to start with is Axios. And it's called Big Challenge Await Minneapolis Would-Be Replacements for Uber and Lyft. So that's what we're mostly going to focus on. We're going to focus on the replacements, and then we're going to zoom in on what I think is the best replacement for Minneapolis drivers. But even though they are the best, I'm also going to talk about some of the things that I expect to be a problem that needs to be solved. So it says they might not need to compete with Uber and Lyft, but industry observers say that new platforms lining up to replace the ride-sharing giants in the Twin Cities will still face big challenges. Here's why it matters. If Uber and Lyft leave on May 1st, as they've threatened, the livelihoods of Metro's 8,000 rideshare drivers will hinge on new companies' abilities to clear business, regulatory, and technical hurdles. Here's what they're saying. You have to be careful of assuming that your upstart company's unit economics are going to be any better than Uber or Lyft's, venture capitalist Bradley Tuss, who advised Uber's early political campaigns, told Axios. So what he's really getting at here is Uber and Lyft have determined that if we have to pay what the Minneapolis City Council says we have to pay per mile and per time, that it's no longer worth it to do business here. So let's acknowledge that I think Uber and Lyft are overbloated. I think that they have an opportunity to run their business more efficiently. And even a year ago, we saw Uber starting to shed off employees. We saw Lyft starting to shed employees in an effort to actually become profitable. The benefit of a smaller company is that they're not going to have the overhead that Uber and Lyft have, for better and for worse. So a lot of companies are able to do better splits with other drivers compared to Uber and Lyft, who have other things they have to take care of, right? They operate so largely that there are things that they can't do without. And a smaller company can come in and have that nimbleness to be able to pay what the city wants them to pay without losing money, right? It's still yet to be seen if that will be the case because, there's hurdles they have to face. So we'll continue diving in. And I'm going to kind of break down what it would look like with the pay structure. We'll get there. Activist drivers last week announced their partnership with a New York City-based company, Co-op Ride. That's what it's called, Co-op Ride, to launch a driver-owned ride-sharing platform in Minnesota with a target date of May 1st. So if you're just hearing about this for the first time, Uber and Lyft have threatened to leave April 1st, but the council pushed back when the new ordinance will go into effect to May 1st. So that's the date that everyone's looking at. Shout outs to the council for pushing it back a month to give themselves time to figure something out. I do want to point out that they should have had something figured out already. All right, so it says the co-op joins a growing list of possible newcomers, including Empower, Hitch, Rides, Revo, Pick App, Move, Teleport, and reportedly My Wheels. So many apps throwing their names into the fray, but there's problems. We believe in competition, said Eid Ali, president of the Minnesota Uber and Lyft Drivers Association. He said the two companies' lock on the market has prevented drivers from earning higher livable wages. I want to say yes and no. So here's a little bit of what I'm concerned about. I do think that having options is good for now, but having too many options is bad for everyone, except maybe passengers, right? If none of these startup apps can get enough passengers on their apps to keep drivers busy, it doesn't matter how much they're making per mile. It doesn't matter how much they're making per minute if they don't have any, like, if you're taking one ride an hour and you're making $30 an hour for that one ride, but you don't have enough rides to actually make $30 an hour in that hour, it's kind of pointless, right? So you don't want the supply to be spread out across too many different apps unless you're going to be a driver who's using all these apps, and that can get pretty difficult. I do think there is room for alternatives. Too many alternatives won't be a good thing, and I think that that's what's going to happen when the rat race starts. There are going to be a bunch of alternatives, and we're going to kind of have to wait and see what the standout is. What are the passengers really using? And then I feel like over time drivers will start to focusing on that app, and I think that's going to take a little bit of time. So there's going to be an adjustment period if things go well. Things could change between now and May 1st, and we'll continue to pay attention to what's happening. Here are the key challenges these new rideshare companies will face. Scaling up to meet demand, Uber and Lyft currently give more than 1 million rides in the Twin Cities every single month. Dang. Molda's new partners has given 300,000 rides in New York City throughout its entire 3-year history. And it's important to point that out. It's not as direct as scaling to that. There's technological things that have to be like thought about, like the server. Like, will it be able to run smoothly with that many people on the app? You know, are they going to have enough insurance to cover the people they need to cover? Is there going to be insurance? There's a lot of things that we have to drill down in here. Ride sharing is not a wildly profitable business, said Tusk, noting that 2023 was Uber's first year ever in the black. For the new companies, the risk that the Minneapolis ordinance gets overturned could also limit their ability to attract investors. So first thing I want to talk about is, it's unfortunate that it is this way, but companies can choose not to be profitable. Amazon wasn't profitable for like 10 years, right? If you take your money that you've made and you reinvest it back in your business and you lose money as a result, on paper, you're not profitable. But we saw that a lot of people thought we were heading towards a recession. A lot of these tech companies were shredding weight for a couple of months and shredding people. Uber's investors said, hey, we're going to start pulling back our money because, you know, hard times. So Uber decided, okay, if we can't rely on investor money anymore, we need to actually be profitable. And they made the decisions to become profitable. They could have done that before, but they were using other people's money to run their business. And now that they have to run their business with their own money, that's why we're seeing some of these changes that they're making. So it's not, when people say Uber just had their first year being positive, it's financially true, but it's a gray misrepresentation of their status as a company, right? And then for the second part, it says that they risk the Minneapolis ordinance getting overturned. So if these companies, they've existed, right? Most of them have existed. They're not new. This company's been existing for 3 years, but they didn't come to Minneapolis, and it's probably because they didn't want to deal with the competition of Uber and Lyft. So there are certain things that are happening. The governor is trying to overturn the ordinance, which, while I don't agree with the ordinance, and I'll share why later, I don't think it's fair to change who is able to have powers just because the people who have powers legally like created something that you don't agree with, right? The council has the power to create this ordinance. They won, they voted, they did what they had to do to convince whoever they had to convince, and they won. It kind of feels like sore loser territory that the governor is trying to do away with what they did, right? So even though I don't agree with what they did in full, I'll share why later, I do think it's unfair to dismiss what they did, even though I don't agree with what they did. So not a huge fan of that, but that is the reality, right? This isn't a conversation about what Tristan wants to happen. This is a conversation about what can happen, right? So don't think that just because I think something's going to happen that I want it to happen. No, I'm looking at what's happening, and I'm building an opinion based off of what I know of the world. Will I be right? Maybe not. Will I be close? Maybe. But it's not a matter of what I want to happen. So if the governor shoots down what the city did and takes away their power to make this decision, and Uber and Lyft stay, then will people want to invest into these new companies? Would you? Would you? Even if let's say you have money to throw at a company, and you saw that a competitor was leaving the space, and you thought that this company was really viable. But if Uber and Lyft come back, it's going to be too much competition. You'd probably have second guess, second thoughts, right? So I think it's reasonable that just the threat that Uber and Lyft could actually stay on May 1st might play a role in how much funding these companies are getting. I don't think that's unreasonable. All right, so it says replicating the network effect. Uber and Lyft connect huge pools of riders with huge pool of drivers. Upstart rideshare companies have historically struggled to retain drivers without the same ability to guarantee work for them, said ABI research analyst James Hodson. And the technology must work. I don't necessarily agree that the technology has to work, but there's more grace in a scenario where Uber and Lyft aren't there, right? So it says after Uber and Lyft briefly pulled out of Austin, Texas in 2016, even the most successful replacements had vastly more ride request volume than they could possibly meet with their server bandwidth, said ride-sharing consultant Jeff Crick. I tried to do some research into that whole scenario, and I didn't find a lot of positive or negative things that were said by drivers or what was going on there. We do know that Uber and Lyft eventually came back, and they priced it so that most of the other companies got priced out. If what this guy is saying is true, and it kind of doesn't matter, right? If your app doesn't work, but it's the best app in the city, it kind of doesn't matter that it doesn't work. You see what I'm saying? It's like people will have to use it regardless. But that's a problem if Uber and Lyft don't leave. So there's so much like gray areas here that we just don't have answers for. And hopefully these things get ironed out before May 1st. These things should have been ironed out a long time ago. I'm really disappointed in the council. I'm trying not to harp too much on them because I've really given it to them in previous videos. But this stuff is important. So it says zoom in. I don't even think we need to read this. It kind of breaks down one of the companies, but this next article does that in a much better fashion. So it says rival rideshare apps start signing up Minneapolis drivers as Uber, Lyft exit looms. Now, I want to say as of last week, only one company applied for the TNC license, right? So let's dig through and see where we're at now. A month from the day Uber and Lyft have threatened to leave Minneapolis over a new rideshare ordinance, two rival apps are testing the waters to see if they can drum up driver and passenger interests. Neither the Drivers Cooperative nor Hitch, that's the name of the company, Hitch, have applied for a license to operate in Minneapolis, but representatives said they signed up a few hundred drivers at an event Friday backed by the Minnesota Uber and Lyft Drivers Association. So this is still a disappointment to me. I don't understand. So, all right. The MOLDA, that's the group that's been pushing for these changes. They are officially partnering with the Drivers Cooperative. However, the Drivers Cooperative has still not applied for their license to operate in Minneapolis. But they're signing up drivers. MOLDA President Eid Ali said his organization would support any alternative service provider interested in joining the market. But they're partnering with one specifically, which is fine. It's fine. Rather than being without services, riders will have multiple options, creating a better and healthier transportation infrastructure, Eid said Friday at Friday's news conference. Yes and no. Going back to what I said about supply and demand, you want to have an app that has majority of the passengers concentrated on it, because you want to make sure that drivers can actually stay busy on that platform. But I will say, it does look like the Drivers Cooperative is becoming the best choice. And when I did some further looking into it, I feel like if I was in Minneapolis, that's where I would lean right now. The Minneapolis City Council overrode a veto by Mayor Jacob Frey on March 14th to pass the state's first ordinance setting minimum pay for rideshare drivers who are independent contractors. The Minneapolis ordinance sets a pay rate of $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute, or $5, whichever is higher, for the time transporting a rider within city limits. Now, here's a major issue that I have with this. Here's why I don't agree with the ordinance. And I'm going to do my best to use math to prove that this isn't a good idea. $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute. That is the number that the council has decided is necessary to make at minimum $15.50, right? 15.50. I'm going to show you something that, hold on, let me think about how I want to phrase this. Okay, I'm going to take the averages from Minnesota to determine how close to $15.50 this number really is. Okay, let's do that. So in order to do that, there are three things that we really need to find out. We need to figure out how far does the average trip go in Minneapolis? How much time does the average trip take in Minneapolis? And how many rides per hour does the average driver take in Minneapolis? If we have those three things, we can apply the rate change that the council implemented and figure out how much the average driver, would make per hour in Minneapolis. Just give me a second to get that set up. Here we go. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think it's important that I do it. Okay, this is one of my favorite tools that I've discovered. It's called Google LM Notebook. It's a AI notebook that you feed it information, and based off of the information that you feed it, you can ask it questions. So I have fed it the Minneapolis report that analyzes the TNC driver pay and expenses just for Minneapolis, right? This is, let's see, how many rides were used in this study? So I want you to understand the scale of which this study was done. It says over 18 million Minnesota TNC trips were analyzed for this study, consistent of data from 2022 provided by Uber and Lyft. That's pretty massive. I wish it were 2023, but I don't know how they get their data. Well, that's a pretty massive amount. How did they get the data? I want to qualify the data a little bit, because I know people out there are going to say, you know, this is a scam, this is fake, this was paid for by Uber, and that could be the case. But this is the best thing that I've found, and if you have something better, you let me know. This is the data was provided by DLI, by Uber and Lyft. Okay. All right. So how long is the average ride? Okay. The average trip for P3, which is the time that passenger is actually in your car, duration in the Twin Cities is 14.64 minutes and 7.87 miles. P3 is when a driver is transporting a passenger from the pickup location to the drop off. Let me think about where I want to go with this. P2, P3, rides per hour. What about P2 and P1? All right, so it says passengers spend 12.8% of driver working time. P2's dispatch time in Twin Cities metro area is 21% of driver working time. Okay. My office door just opened. It's creepy. No one else is here. Let me think. Okay. Average trips per hour. I'm thinking. I know it's in here somewhere. I'm just not asking the correct question. How much do drivers need to make to earn 15.50 an hour? I'm not. I'm gonna come back to this. I'm not. My brain isn't working the way it should. I'm gonna continue reading, and we're gonna come back. Uber and Lyft have said that those rates are too high and that they would leave Minneapolis in this case Uber the entire Twin Cities metro by May 1st. I'm gonna figure out the math. I gotta figure out the correct way to ask the questions. The rideshare giants have been lobbying Minneapolis and state officials for a much lower rate of 89 cents per mile and 49 per minute. Okay. I feel like I have to. All right. Give me a second, guys. I'm trying not to slow down the podcast speed, but this is important stuff. What is the average trip length in Minneapolis? I'm gonna get my notes out so I can start taking notes. Okay. The average trip length of a TNC ride in the Twin Cities metro of Minneapolis, Minnesota was 14.64 minutes. It even has the citations here. So it shows the average. Oh, come on. So it says 2022 average earnings per trip was $8. 22 average per minutes per trip, $22.78. Average miles per trip, 782. It says P3 share of minutes. Okay. Okay, so average trip, AVG, 14.64 minutes. How many miles is the average trip? The average trip length in miles, 7.87. All right. So we have the average trip time of 14 minutes. The average miles is 7.87. And now we need to figure out what's the average amount of rides that are taken per hour. How many rides does a driver average per hour? Okay, so it says on average, a Minnesota TNC driver logged an estimated 2.37 trips per hour. Okay, so mins, miles, average rides is 2.37. Okay, so we have the three things that we need: average time for a ride, average miles, and average rides per hour. So the average for time is 14 minutes, 64 seconds, I guess, kind of. The average for miles is 7 miles. We'll round it up to 8. We'll round all these numbers. The average trip is 15 minutes. I'm going to call it 15 minutes, round it up. The average miles is 8 miles. And we're not going to round up the average rides, 2.36, because 2.36 is vastly different than 3. So we're not going to touch that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Bard to help us do some math. So we're going to say consider the average ride lasts 15 minutes and goes 8 miles, and a driver does 2.36 rides per hour. How much would a driver make per hour? And what we're going to do is we're going to use the pay rate that the council just passed as our litmus test. So this is what they make. I'm going to copy and paste this. What a driver make per hour if they were paid $1.40 per mile and $1.50 per minute. Let's see what it says. Sorry it took so long to get here. So it does the math for us. Right? It says earnings from miles. I'm not gonna go through that. We'll just go down here to the answer. It says, therefore, a driver would make approximately $44.53 based off of the information we gave it, right? Last time I did this, there was some feedback saying that I'm not accounting for time spent without a passenger. However, the average amount of rides per hour takes that into consideration already. So using this pay structure, someone would end up with $44.53 per hour. Now, I'm not saying that this is deserved or not deserved. I think that it's not sustainable, right? Not for, especially not for Uber and Lyft. They have a lot of overhead. There is a chance that there is a company that can wiggle their way into the market and afford this, right? From a business perspective. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to have an impact on the supply and demand of passengers. Passengers might say, all right, this is a lot more money that we're having to pay, and we're going to opt to take the bus or whatever, right? That's still yet to be seen. I think that even with Lyft and Uber leaving, the thing that concerns me the most is that supply and demand. Is that, so for example, I'll bring it up here. Under the current pay model, drivers were averaging 2.36 rides per hour. However, if it's more expensive, that number could drop, right? So it could play around with this per hourly rate, and it's going to have an effect on it. And there's not going to be a real way to see unless we have like updated data after May 1st. So, there's only so much we can guess and think will happen. But I just want to point out that what the council believes will equate to $15.50 based off of this study with over 18 million rides in specifically Minnesota, that would work out to $44.53 just based off of that math. If you have holes in my math, let me know. I want to have the most accurate answer possible. And, we use the rides per hour. We use the average miles per ride, and we use the average time per ride, right? Those are just the averages. And based off of those the average driver will make $44.53 at minimum. Minimum. This is the least that they would make. Of course, expenses aren't included in here. Um, Everybody's expenses are going to be different. I don't think that anyone has a level of expense that will take them from $44 at minimum down to $15.50, right? Even if you had $20 worth of expenses per hour of operation, which is extremely high, mine is about 8, and that's when I have to buy tires. It's extremely high. You would still be making $24.53 at minimum after expenses, right? I'm not going to sit here and judge what is deserved or what is not deserved. I'm simply highlighting that what the council thinks is necessary to make $15.50 does not equal $15.50, and it's not even close. That is all I'm highlighting right here. So a company that wants to come in has to operate on major thin margins. And even with that being said, I think the driver co-op has a shot, and I'm going to do my best to prove it. Uber and Lyft have said those rates are too high and that they would leave Minneapolis. And in case of Uber, the entire Twin Cities metro by May 1st. The rideshare giants have been lobbying Minneapolis and state officials for a much lower rate of 89 cents per mile and 49 cents per minute. If we were to implement this into the math that we just did, it would come out closer to $15.50, right? In fact, let's look at what it is, right? We already have it kind of written out, so we just got to plug and play. It won't take long, guys. I promise. All right, so here it is. We'll just go up to the original prompt and edit the prompt. We'll replace that and see what it says. Okay, so with this new calculation, with the numbers that Uber, Lyft, the mayor, and the governor think would work better, the driver would make approximately $17.96 per hour, and that does not include expenses. I do think that assuming $2 to $3 per hour in expenses is a little low. I do think there's more room for that to be better, but it is a closer cry to what the expectation is of $15.50 versus what the council is using. In fact, the council use anecdotal data. I don't even know where they got their data from. They haven't really shared with us where they've gotten their data. So I can't even cross reference what they're saying. But you know, like if you have better data than this, share. Give it to me. I want data. I think we can make better decisions using data, and I think the council didn't have any good data to use. But the move has presented an opening to several smaller rideshare companies, which promises to give drivers a larger cut of the fares. Eric Foreman, a co-founder of Drivers Cooperative or Co-op Ride, was in town from New York this week helping sign up drivers for a Minnesota co-op. Co-op Ride has about 12,000 drivers in New York. According to Foreman, the company specializes in paratransit and non-emergency medical transportation, but would focus on general rideshare services should they come into the market. What is paratransit? Here I go, making another tab. Paratransit. So paratransit is a shared rideshare public service intended to serve as a safety net for individuals who, because of their disabilities, are unable to ride. Wow. So they don't even practice general rideshare things. And their entire business model isn't based off of that, and they have a month to figure it out. They have a tall hill to climb, but I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna believe in them and hope that they are successful in what they do, and hope that drivers benefit from it, because I do want drivers to benefit from it. The only reason I oppose the council is because I don't think it'll be long-term beneficial. However, if I can be proven wrong, I support that because I don't want to be right. Foreman said the plan is to begin operation by May 1st, and he's already helped 200 drivers sign up during his first day in Minnesota. Good. But we also need riders, and so we're calling on the people of Minnesota, get involved. This is going to be your company. Make it happen. Money is also an issue when getting a rideshare company started. Foreman said at very bare minimum, about 200 grand is what's needed to get up and running in Minneapolis. Now, I do know that in order to get the application done for Minneapolis, it's like 40 grand. For St. Pete, which is like an adjacent city where the airport is, it's like another 40 grand. And I'm sure there are other things that I'm not aware of that cost money. Co-op Ride said it's willing to make sure drivers are paid the minimum wage called for by the Minneapolis ordinance. The app works by taking a percentage of drivers' fare, money that is then reinvested in the company or paid to the drivers as dividends, Foreman said. And we are going to actually look at their rates. We're going to go to their website, dig through their website, and we're going to figure out an estimate on what passengers would have to pay, what their percentage take would be, and what drivers would get at minimum, right? We don't know what the maximum would be. We'll just consider the minimum. A second rideshare company also announced it would enter the Minneapolis market on Friday at a news conference, which is Hitch. Hitch recently set up Minnesota website and lists an office in Bloomington, which is a requirement. In order to apply for your TNC license, you actually have to have a physical location in that area, which might be the holdup for some other companies. Mustafa Ali, a company representative, said Hitch predominantly operates in Africa as a rideshare service, but does have a presence in Canada with cab services. Ali has been in Minnesota for 4 months, setting up office and talking to drivers. Hitch's compensation model is different from most rideshare apps because instead of taking a percentage of trip fares, it charges drivers to use the app, which that's not a bad business model if you can get it working correctly. Hitch drivers pay $200 to drive all month, or they can pay a daily rate of $9.99. We're a startup here. We saw these drivers that are unhappy, and the only thing that they're missing is the technology. We have the technology, Ali said. But this doesn't fully deal with the fact that if passengers feel like this is too much money, they're not going to do it, right? So this company Hitch, they just got to collect their money, $200 from drivers. That's fine. That's good for them. Hopefully that covers insurance and whatever else needs to be covered, and they can operate their business off of that money. That's cool. My problem is the supply and demand of it all. If prices increase too much for passengers, less passengers are gonna use the platform. There's gonna be less money to make, even though you're paying a highly rate. If your car's not moving, you're gonna be losing money. So that's a concern that I still have. But if passengers there are willing to pay the new price for whatever it is, especially considering that these companies have lower overhead, the prices could still be comparable to what Uber and Lyft are paying. You see what I'm saying? Because Uber and Lyft have such a high overhead, they have to charge more. But a company with less overhead can come in, and the pay difference might not be that big, so passengers might still be with it. So those gaps in numbers are gonna have to get filled in. We're gonna have to see what the sentiment is once May 1st comes, if this gets going. But there is a sliver of hope, right? There is some part of me that believes that this can work if nothing comes and muck it up. I give it like a 10% chance of working, but I want it to work. I want that 10% to work out. Before any new rideshare app can begin operation in Minneapolis, it needs to apply for a transportation network company license within the city. Both Hitch and Driver Co-op said they have not done so yet. You see what I'm saying? You see, if they apply, I'll increase that to 25%. But until then, to me, it's like, okay, what's the holdup? There has to be a reason why they haven't done it yet. I don't know what that reason is, but it's causing me to second guess. It's causing me to have not as much faith. Ali said that his attorney is working through an insurance issue before they can submit applications in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And regardless of whether Uber and Lyft leave, Ali said his app would be entering the market. Okay, that's good. My market research shows me that I can enter the market. According to Ali, the license application for rideshare companies comes with a fee, and both Minneapolis and St. Paul charge about $40,000 for their licenses each. Minneapolis lists a fee of 37 grand, and St. Paul says it charges 41 grand. Both cities have a minimum $1 million liability insurance requirement for drivers. Yeah, that's something anyone who wants to enter the game has to pay. Fun fact, for individuals, it's about, for me, it's like $400 for $1 million liability insurance policy. which I don't think is that bad. As of this week, 2 rideshare companies have applied for a TNC license in Minneapolis. City spokesman Casper Hill said on Thursday. Hill said the approval process usually takes 2 to 6 weeks. Only 2 so far. I know one of them is a very, very small company called Move. But let's move forward. We got to kind of lighten around here because it's 5:38. All right, so these are 6 apps real quick that are kind of vying for the Minneapolis market. We have Rides, which is a ride-hailing company that lists 18 metro markets where it currently operates, mostly focused in Texas where it's based. Drivers pay a monthly membership fee to rides but keep full fares. That is available in Charleston, and just because someone gives you 100% of the fares doesn't mean that 100% of their fares will be more money than the 40% or 50% that we get from Uber and Lyft. And Charleston is a reflection of that, right? So I had a rides account, and there's no surge. There's not enough rides. Um, it's there's just don't get caught up in percentages. Percentages can make math weird, and people will use that to their advantage. And for some people, it's the principle, right? They want 100% of the fare, and they don't care if that 100% of the fare is lower than 40% from Uber and Lyft. It's the principle. To me, it's not the principle; it's about the dollars. If Uber and Lyft are paying more, but they're taking a bigger cut, I'm not gonna say I don't care, but I'm gonna drive with them. So that matters too. It's not as simple as they give you 100%. Joyride, which is a North Carolina-based company that offers rides using only Tesla vehicles. Interesting. I'm not a huge fan of Tesla for rideshare, but that's for next week. Hitch, not to be confused with another ride-hailing company, Hitch. Hitch, Minnesota is a local co-op startup. There's Move, another local startup. That's one of the ones that has applied for license. He launched a GoFundMe last week that has raised only about $120 so far. Let's see where it's at now. He's gone up $5 since then. It's not a good look. My Wheel says St. Paul-based startup, and Ride Co-op, which is what I think will be the standout if Uber and Lyft leave. A coalition of Minneapolis ride-hailing app drivers are looking to move forward with their own co-op app. They announced the new company last week. Now, I want this to succeed because it would set a very strong precedent for the rest of America, right? If there is a model that can exist that will give drivers better pay and protections, I support it. I just don't think this is going to work out well. But I want it to work out well. I just don't think it will. It's unclear how ready any of these companies are to move in and fully replace Uber and Lyft in Minneapolis. As of last week, the city of Minneapolis said only 2 companies have applied for licenses to operate in Minneapolis. However, it's not clear which 2 companies. I don't know what the second company is, but I know for a fact it's this company because he said so. So I guess it's not a fact, but he's the only company that has spoken up and said, hey, I did this. I made a video about it. I dropped it last week. If granted, it's also not clear how quickly these companies would be able to ramp up coverage in the Twin Cities, or if anyone is ready to launch by May 1st. At the same time, city leaders in Minneapolis are considering tweaks to the bill that could keep Uber and Lyft in Minneapolis. Those tweaks are expected to be discussed and voted on during council meetings in April. All right, let's jump to this is Move. That's the GoFundMe. Okay, so man, all right, we gotta zoom through these. So the city council isn't as united as they appear. There've been some back and forth, some clashes, and they're supposed to vote again before May 1st to like really solidify if this is something you want to do. There's some council members that are headstrong, we're doing this, and some are kind of like, wait, pump the brakes, let's slow down. So this is one of the council members. It says City Council Member Michael Rainville, we cannot afford to lose Uber and Lyft in Minneapolis. We're just going to quickly read this to see what his opinion is on this, see if it's like worthy of something. My office has been inundated with calls and emails from constituents who are irate and bewildered by the recent rideshare ordinance passed by my colleagues on the Minneapolis City Council and the subsequent decision by Lyft and Uber to discontinue services in Minneapolis and the surrounding metro area. That guy can write. That was some good word choices. I vetoed against the ordinance along with council members Latricia and Leanna. This ordinance was passed hastily based on anecdotal information as opposed to hard data. That's just bad policy. I agree. Pair this with a lack of imagination and an overly simplistic understanding of extremely complex issues, and you get a cascading avalanche of unintended consequences. This guy can write. Seniors and those living with disabilities have come to rely on rideshare companies for everyday needs and essential services, such as healthcare visits. They deserve the dignity of their independence, and the ordinance robs them of it. I'm extremely concerned for the livelihoods of those workers who serve in our nighttime hospitality and entertainment economy, and all of the workers who support them. These businesses and their ability to provide jobs are dependent on visitors, and if visitors don't feel like they have a safe, reliable, and efficient option for transportation, they would take their business elsewhere along with those jobs. I don't think that's much of a concern. I think people will figure it out. The council members who support this ordinance argue that all will be well because other rideshare companies will either come to town or magically materialize overnight. I think this is wishful thinking at best and absolutely no substitute for a plan. I agree that is not a great substitute for a plan, and I've discussed how I'm disappointed that Moldova did not have a solution ready. He did an interview with the rideshare guy last week. I made a video responding to that. Disappointed, disappointed, disappointed. But I don't think just having a rideshare company is going to solve everything. I think that at the main issue is the paper mile and the paper time. It equates to almost $45 an hour, judging by the average amount of rides, which would probably fluctuate under a new system, but it won't fluctuate to the point where it's now going from $45 an hour to $15 an hour. So, like, just because a new company steps in doesn't mean that my concerns are quelled, you know? Like, sure, yes, having a company step in is great, but I still think that drivers are going to make less money if the demand isn't there, right? So there's a chance that demand will be there. Everything is moving well. People are willing to pay these prices. Great, fantastic. I just don't currently believe that will happen, or a very small percentage of me believes that could happen. He says, I have a strong track record of support for organized labor and the right to collective bargaining. I believe people deserve a fair wage in exchange for their efforts. However, like my constituents, I fail to see how this ordinance gets us there. Instead of increasing wages for rideshare drivers, this ordinance threatens to put thousands of them out of work completely beginning May 1st, assuming that there is no alternative, but an alternative should have been here before they voted on it. It's sad that they didn't do that. They had 6 months. This has been going on for over 6 months. This isn't something that just popped up out of the blue. Uber and Lyft has said that they would leave 6 months ago. So, okay, can't say too long here. This is kind of what the governor has to say. He says replacement app before Uber and Lyft leave Minneapolis is magical thinking, wants solutions so companies stay. So you can kind of see where people lean. I think that he should support an alternative, even if he wants Lyft and Uber to stay. Governor Walz on Monday reiterated he wants to find a compromise to increase rideshare driver pay but keep Uber and Lyft operating in the Twin Cities after companies said they would exit Minneapolis due to its city ordinance. The new local law requires a minimum wage of $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute for drivers, a rate the company argues is not sustainable, but drivers say their current pay is not enough to get by to support themselves and their families. Increasing the amount of money you make is important, and decreasing the amount of money you spend is just as important. I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm not saying that Uber and Lyft are paying enough. I'm saying that there are things that we can do as individuals to shield ourselves from the things that are happening financially outside of our homes, and it's important to focus on that as well. And that's what we do here, or at least that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to put more emphasis on that moving forward. A state study by the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry determined drivers need 89 cents per mile, 49 cents per minute to make the equivalent of $15.57. The analysts, which looked at 18 million rides across the state last year, said a mileage rate of 120 will cover additional, more comprehensive benefits. Both are lower than the city's plan. And I will say, both the governor and the mayor were offering 120 to them last year, which is before the study dropped. And the study came out and said it's 89 cents. I think they should have took the 120. I think it was very reasonable for them to take the 120. The governor said he's trying to find a path forward with stakeholders, but noted, I don't care about stakeholders, sorry, but noted that the window before the self-imposed departure deadline by Uber and Lyft is shrinking. The council may reconsider its ordinance and subsequent override of Mayor Jacob Frey's veto of its meeting next week. And I can't wait for that meeting. I want to see what happens. I don't think it'll be overturned. But it's their final vote before things change. And I guess they'll have a lot more information to make decisions about what they should do. Now, could they come back and postpone the date? I don't know. I think that's a good idea, but I don't know if that's something that they can do. Okay, so we have about 12 minutes left, and I want to look at the co-op, right? I want to look at what this co-op is saying, what they're offering, and they have a pretty decent website. Co-op of New York. Rideshare. This is it. The Drivers Cooperative. Okay, it says we are a driver-owned cooperative in New York City, specializing in paratransit and non-emergency medical transportation. I didn't realize that until today, until I started reading with you guys, that they don't specialize in regular rideshare. This is all like for picking up people who have disabilities. So they have a steep learning curve ahead of them. Let's go to their about section, and you can see the pricing. So they have a nice little table here. Upfront pricing, pretty cool. But just keep in mind that this is pricing, not pay, right? So it says riders have billed the following rates for co-op trips unless on a business account. So for what's their base vehicle classification, per minute you'd get 72 cents. Per mile you get $1. Sorry, you'd pay. This is how much it costs. So per minute would be 72 cents. Per mile would be $1.70 for the first 10 miles, and then for the 10 miles after that it'd be $1.39, and the minimum fare would be $8. It says the tolls are paid by the rider based on the route actually taken and are remitted to you by the co-op. You are paid these amounts minus the co-op's 15% commission, which goes to sustain and grow your business. So from the $1.39 that you would make per mile at the first 10 miles, they are going to take 15% of that. But in Minneapolis, they would have to make at minimum $1.70 per mile, right? So that means that at minimum, they would have to charge the passenger $1.70 per mile plus 15% if they're going to take the same co-op 15% commission. So let's see if we can quickly figure out what that number looks like. What is 15% of $1.70? So that's 26 cents. So was that 196? So they at minimum, the minimum, a passenger would have to pay $1.96 per mile. So almost $2 per mile. So for if they're going 10 miles, or let's use the averages, right? So $1.96 per mile, and we already calculated the averages over here, right here. So we'll go up to this prompt, and let's just say per hour, how much would a driver make per hour if they were paid $1.96 per mile? And we'll just use the 59 cents again here. 51 cents per minute. Let's see what it says. So we didn't really need all of that, but let me see where the answer total ride per ride. Okay, so the average ride right here would cost. Is that cost? Yeah, so the average ride would cost $23.33 in Minneapolis, with nothing to compare it to. Kind of relevant math there, but like I do think that this co-op structure is a good structure, right? It's not bad. They're telling you how much you're going to take. It's 15%. They're telling you upfront how much they're going to charge, but these numbers don't work currently. The minimum wage that is required in Minneapolis is higher than these, and then you'd have to add 15% on top of those minimums for the business to make their cut. So it's still going to be an expensive ride. Will it be more expensive than Uber and Lyft in the past? I don't know. I'm not there enough to know. Or maybe I can find out, right? Maybe I can ask how much is the average customer price. Let's see if it's in the study. Average payment. I don't think it's going to be here. TNC drivers average hourly earnings were $29.64 on a gross passenger time basis, 23 on a gross working hour basis, and 13 on a net after expenses working hour basis. So it's not what we're looking for. Not what we're looking for. But so I guess I got to do a little deeper looking into it. Let's see what else the co-op is saying. I'm actually a little bothered that they haven't actually done like regular rideshare and that they're only focused on I guess medical rides, non-emergency medical rides. But it's just something I'm wary of. It's not something that I'm gonna hold against them. It says for a long pickup fee, if the time it takes you to reach the passenger is longer than 8 minutes, you are paid the full passenger fare. The co-op does not take a commission for that time and distance. It's interesting. Hold on. Let's see what else they have. All right, it says, what is a cooperative? A cooperative is an organization that is owned and controlled by its workers or members, not by investors or private individuals. A cooperative distributes benefits to its members on the basis of use or investment of their labor. Those benefits are called patronage. If they can get this model to work, I think it'll be great. I really do. It'll create a great precedent. Um, I fear that the council is setting up any company who comes here to fail with their rates. That's what my main concern is. And of course, that's just my opinion. Uh it's We're not going to really know until it happens, right? So I'm just here telling you how I think, what I think will happen. I could be wrong, I could be right, I could be close to wrong, I could be close to right. We're not going to know until it happens, until it evens out, until we have more situations. And I'm sure between now and May 1st, so much is going to happen. So much is going to happen. All right, so for the last 5 minutes of the stream, I'm going to focus in on your comments, see what you guys are saying. Damien says, hey, Tristan, just say there was a 100% increase in rideshare companies applying to operate in Minneapolis. That's a good title because we went from 1 to 2, and that's a 100% increase. That's a good one. That is a good one. Let me keep, hold on, let me go to the top. Damien says, Tristan, you forgot to calculate wait time. Otherwise, good point, but include cost of missing benefits unless drivers are expected to go on welfare and Medicaid. Nope. Wait time doesn't need to be calculated. If you know how many rides on average a driver is taking, that information already constitute wait time. So if someone's taking 2.6 rides per hour, the wait time is built into that. They're saying that even with or without the wait, the average is 2 point whatever, right? So that wait time is built into that. Dang, you guys been going off in here. Okay. Okay, Tomcat says, what is the minimum pay requirement that talking about in Minneapolis? So I covered it, but I'll answer specifically. They want to pay drivers $1.70 per mile and 51 cents per minute because they believe that will equate to $15.50 minimum. That's what they believe. Damien says, in my market, he's talking to someone else. I'm kind of just speed reading here. Damien says, Tristan, why should Uber Lyft be allowed to come back and wipe out the competition and then raise prices and lower driver pay again? Should not Uber Lyft be banned for at least 5 years? They lied to come back. I'm kind of laissez-faire economics. I believe that government should get involved as little as possible. Sometimes government intervention is okay, but for the most of it, we should just let the open market rock. And if they want to leave and they want to come back, they are companies and they're allowed to do that. And as long as it's not illegal, It's fine. It might be immoral, right? So from a morality perspective, it sucks that they might come back and then just lower prices to get rid of competition. That's capitalism, man. That's America, for better and for worse. So I'm not going to say they should do this or they should do that. They should be banned for this and that. It's kind of like I'm just trying to when I do my best to see what will happen. It's based off of today. So unless there's a law that prevents them from coming back, well, I'm not. I don't really have an opinion on government forcing them not to come back. You know. Demi says, how about lower the 40K application fee for rideshare companies? What do other cities pay? Why not lower fee regardless? I do know that the council, and this was a good move, they're willing to, I guess, loan potential rideshare companies about, I think it was 150,000. I made a video about it. So that's cool. I'm not with debt. If you get debt from the government and then Uber and Lyft come back and question your business, you still got that debt. I wouldn't do it, but it's nice that there's an option for it. We'll see how that develops. Dolphin says apps are not necessary. Business license LLCs that are already in place will add employees to their already established business. I think that drivers who want to be long-term drivers, especially drivers in Minneapolis, should look towards doing whatever it takes to become a private driver. So that's something that I think you guys should be looking into. Dolphin says, why not get a W-2 as a driver at the airport? Not sure what you're asking. Work at the airport and then drive part-time. Damien says, how about Minneapolis buy bulk commercial insurance and tax of every driver ride? Hopefully Minneapolis won't mark up commercial insurance 300% like Uber and Lyft. Also lowers the barrier to drive cash price. Keep in mind that the insurance these companies are paying for are mandated by the government. The reason why the insurance, so it's just like student loans. A government is giving out loans to universities, and universities have an incentive to continue to increase their price. When government gets involved, things get weird, right? So government is forcing Uber and Lyft to carry commercial insurance on behalf of us. That is why the prices are going up. So I do think that would be cool if there was an honest government that would provide commercial insurance and cap what could be charged for commercial insurance. But I currently think that government's part of the problem when it comes to commercial insurance. Let's get it. Says, do you make more money working mornings or nights? Yes. The answer is yes. I make money working nights into the mornings. For me, that means 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. You just want to work when there's no traffic, and you want to work when other drivers don't want to work. Tomcat says, how about just ask current number for that criteria? I know I don't remember what that was in reference to, but it was probably with me talking to the computer. Demi says, to cut down on drivers in Minneapolis, do ultra quality background checks and finger checks through the DMV and issue a rideshare driver's license endorsement, which is revoked if driver commits bad crimes. Nia says, I respect that. That's something to work towards. Account buffer. Naya. Got you. Tomcat says, how about just ask current number for the criteria? Tristan, you forgot to calculate wait time. Otherwise, good point. And I responded to that already. How much per hour Uber and Lyft charging to the customers as average? I'll look that up later. What are the local taxi rates per mile? That's a good question. That is a good question, but I don't have time. How do you know Uber is operating on a razor sharp profits in 2024? If so, why is Uber doing a share buyback instead of paying off debt? Where is your supporting data? Cause Uber said so. You might have misunderstood something I said, but I also don't remember what I said in full, and I'm gonna move forward. I think that I would say whatever company moves in is gonna be operating on razor sharp because of the pay standard that the council is trying to implement. So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not necessarily believing that Uber is operating on a razor thin profit, generally speaking. I'm just saying that with the new pay rate, it's possible that it's just not worth being there anymore. Hitch model may even lower fares as Uber takes 70% of fare. Hitch should also buy bulk commercial insurance and sell commercial insurance per ride. They probably have to have insurance. So these companies that are trying to be TNC providers in Minneapolis probably are going to have to carry commercial insurance. I believe it's one of the requirements. Could be wrong, but it's Very likely. Any situation that requires drivers to get their own commercial insurance is gonna have a tough time getting enough drivers. Even though I think that's the best way to go about it, but that a lot of drivers drivers are gonna want to do the least to make the most. That's the grand scope of it all. And if you're gonna require drivers to get commercial insurance in order to be on your app, you're gonna have less driver signups. So that is something to watch. Damien says, "Hey Tristan, just say it was Damien. Good point. Not enough rides on these smaller apps. Need a central board to collect and aggregate these rideshare companies. Capitalists will find a way." Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be over time though. Damien says, "I guess I should say something nice to Uber and Lyft. Give them credit for ramming through the rideshare biz model and wiping out 80% of taxis. On downside, they got good at legislative capture lobbying. That is true." Driven Dad says, "How about caps on driver supply?" I understand the benefit of caps. I probably won't push for it. It feels too selfish. I believe that rideshare is a great thing for people who, were fired from their jobs, let go, who need to transition. And I don't want to gatekeep them from that, even though I understand I'd benefit from that. So I kind of sit neutral on it. I'm not gonna support it really, and I'm not gonna like over denounce it. My channel is about how to use rideshare as a stepping stone. I don't want to bar people from having rideshare as a stepping stone, though I understand the benefits and negatives of it. So I will say, logically speaking, if you're going to increase pay for drivers, the best way to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact is by capping it. So logically speaking, I can agree with that. Damien says the problem is Uber has the customers and profits to cover pay increases. Small rideshare apps have good pay model, but no network of customers. So yeah, I agree with you, right? Even if Uber and Lyft take a loss in Minneapolis for a short period of time in order to price out the competition that came in while they were gone, they can just rely on their profits from Florida or profits from a different state. So I do agree with you. They have some financial ability to bully people. And I don't really like that part of it because it can stifle you know, smaller companies coming up. So I'm not a huge fan. And I get why these companies don't want to join the market unless Uber and Lyft are gone. So I get it. I really do. And it's unfortunate. It's one of the negative aspects of capitalism. Damien says, I would take $1.20 a mile paid per trip, not per week. Yeah. No, that's what it's supposed to be. And that's the minimum. I can't stress that enough. These numbers that they expect these drivers to make are at minimum. Damien says, I think Uber charges $2.50 a mile. I got it. Yeah, I want to start paying attention to how much passengers are charged per mile. I have it in my head like how much I make per mile, but I want to start seeing what passengers are paying per mile and start taking note of that. Damien says, don't forget surges, Uber and Lyft charges. Correction, don't forget Uber surges. Tomcat says, if company pay more for human drivers than developing costs for unmanned vehicle, then all good, I think. That is true. I did look at the numbers. The operating cost for a self-driving car is like 20 cents. And drivers are like 80 cents. So it is cheaper to operate these cars. A lot of people don't think that it is, but it's been fun. There's another podcast going on right now. Hold on. Eric says nothing prevents someone from getting commercial insurance, signing up with that, then canceling the insurance. This is why you require TNC to provide insurance, so it can't be gamed. My overarching response to that is sometimes when you try something new, there are gonna be things and problems, right? There are gonna be problems that pop up. The solution when problems pop up isn't necessarily to revert to the thing you did before. It's to figure out the solution to that thing. So if Uber and Lyft had to create a system that checks once a month on if someone's commercial insurance is valid, I think that's a good solution. And I think that implementing a solution like that would be cheaper than having to pay for insurance for everyone. So that's kind of where I would go with that. I don't know if that's the solution, but just because a problem pops up from a new solution doesn't mean we should do away with the entire solution. But the Rideshare guys podcast should be starting right now. You guys should go check that out. It's fun hanging out with you guys. And welcome to the future Rideshare Millionaire podcast, the first episode underneath the rebrand. I'll see you guys later.